What?
Welcome to Plat Chat
What's so funny?
VALORANT. Episode 33, Plat Chat VALORANT, huh?
Hey, what's this guy laughing about?
It's been
over
a
there?
long road. We're finally.
What was the long road? What was the journey?
I don't know.
The long road was waiting to get the intro out, you know? That's
Oh,
it.
yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean,
or waiting 2 extra days to do the show.
True.
We did wait
actually.
2 days. We've got the new start date. If you're here on time, congratulations. Read our tweets. Follow our Twitter at the link.
But Bren,
Boom.
what's happening on Mondays now? If this has moved to Wednesday, what's happening on Monday?
I am so
Please
glad
say
you
Among
asked.
Will I be lonely on Monday without any Plat Chat content?
You will not be lonely, Josh. For we have back chat.
God, you couldn't be any more fucking enthused, could you?
Really drawing the viewers in. Wow, I'm on the edge of my seat waiting until Monday now. My loneliness will
that face
end.
for the YouTube clickbait thumbnail. Bren slapping his cheeks.
Found
Is
it.
that
I just needed to wake myself up a little bit. I didn't get much sleep last night. I'm a little bit doolally. So
You didn't get much sleep. You left ranked, and we kept playing.
Yeah,
What do
I
you
only
mean you
got
didn't
3
get much
hours.
You only
Well,
got
oh,
3
so-
hours sleep.
yeah,
So what you're saying is, should have stayed up and played ranked with
I
us.
fucking should have. It would have been a better expenditure of my time than tossing and turning in bed. Yeah, I mean,
Right.
let's get started. First topic is the old is Envy, huh? This Envy team looking pretty hot. I mean, this Avast guy that we got on the show. We know he's on the payroll and all that, but I mean, he was singing their praises for quite some time. But they finally took down Sentinels. They won Challengers too. They upset all of our expectations. Came into the upper bracket, came into the finals, and just kind of dominated. Really, just kind of worked Sentinels into neutral.
Yeah.
I mean, I wanted to let. I mean,
I'm
Oh,
waiting
you
for
want to put
Avast to
Nigo
gloat.
after he called out my conflict of interest after he
Yes.
blatantly called. Well, you know what?
Yep.
I only had one response, and you know it was, I am Douglas Apper's father. I raised him right and taught him manners and how to be a man. I'm not teaching him to teabag, but yeah, they look good. They look really good. But I feel like we, you know, I didn't want to finish the whole copy pasta because it's like 20 minutes. It's like a 20-minute long. Someone wrote an essay. But like that's too long of copy pasta, dude. But they
Are
look
you
really good.
Douglas?
Food was cracked.
Okay,
I put him in
Yeah.
the soldier theorem, and he looked really good.
That's the large takeaway for me. is
Yeah.
Food's performance in this tournament was the best I have ever seen of him.
Yes,
it was unfucking believable.
He had one of the best
no
clips
anger
ever,
in you.
and with like him and A Short, and he was like lurking, and he let everyone pass him, and he like bumped into Zombs like 3 times,
Yeah.
and A Short waiting to set it up. It's such a good clip.
I mean, you say lurking. What he was doing was the classic food thing of hiding in a corner, where he just hides in a corner and prays to God that no one checks him.
Yeah.
And no one checked him. But he's kind of, what I like about Food from this tournament though, is that he's still the same player, where he's making these aggressive peaks and he's hiding in these one and done spots and stuff like that. But a lot of the time he's picking his moments a lot better. And he's taking, and the rest of the team is supporting him as well. The way that him and Crashy's played around each other on this Haven A defense, and then when Food's taking fights on the other maps that he's playing, like when they played against Immortals and they're fighting really aggressively in A main for Ascent control, like that, or fighting in Ascent on A main, they've built the team around how Food wants to play to empower Food, and so that even if he's overfacing, like even if Sentinels were really on their A game and they were winning the duels against Food, I still think they would have got value from how Food was playing. Whereas in the past, if Food's not hitting the shots, he doesn't have value. Whereas this tournament, it felt like they'd really figured something out where, okay, Food actually was just winning all of the duels that he was taking.
That is
so
a
that's
very
why he looked like,
crucial element.
Yeah, which is why he looked like such a monster. But I feel like they've also figured out how best to make use of him. Like here, where they're just, him and Crashies were working so well together here, and him and Caboose were working really well together on Ascent. And they've figured out systems to empower him so that he's not just pushing on his own and trying to overface.
Yeah, I agree. They were doing a nice job of letting him take point and actually supporting him. And he was finding good timings. And crucially, he just did not miss ever. But even aside from that, one of the things that I was really impressed by with Envy's play was their post plants. I thought that they were excellent, especially on this Haven map that you were watching here. They had a really or rather, they just played the post plants very well by playing them aggressively. They were very good at taking extra map control. On the B plants, they were really good at taking over the connectors, where again, Food was just taking point.
Food ulted out of B on one of the rounds.
That play was just really nice plays like that. I was impressed with their post plants, and that is the style that they need to play to both enable him, but also reap the rewards of what he brings to the team, because that is what he brings to the team is the aggression. The ability to have these moments where he can pop off, get 2-3 Ks with really strong mechanics. So both trying to enable him, but playing a style where you reap the rewards of what he brings is crucial. And they definitely did that in this tournament. And also, for me, I was ready to give the MVP of this tournament until the finals to Crashes as well, because Crashes was just so consistent the whole time. He was winning out clutches. His aim was on point the whole tournament as well. The Envy guys they were popping in this tournament, honestly, on an individual level. But I thought Crashes was so sick the entire time.
What's going on here? Okay.
We're having some playback issues there. But I mean, would we agree then that I feel like for Envy, and we talked about this yesterday when we were watching the shortest finals of all time, was that I feel like Envy didn't do anything particularly innovative here. It wasn't like Fnatic where they do the Killjoy ult in mid-Haven, and they forced everyone to shoot that, right? I don't feel like they did anything like super crazy. I just felt like they played with extreme confidence and like extremely good fundamentals of like you talked about, that aggressive post-plant positioning and like holding so aggressively to deny map control. Like I didn't feel like, and they were just winning duels. I feel like they weren't doing anything too crazy. It was just really good.
I think that also, Kurt, if you can go back to like round 3 and of this when Envy was defending, these first 6 rounds were an FNS masterclass in, like you said, Avast, it's not anything unbelievably creative, but FNS had the read on exactly where Sentinels wanted to go on Haven every single time. And considering that this is Sentinels' best map, undefeated, 15-0 in 2021, and it's Envy's worst. It's their permaban. It's looked really shoddy for them, especially on the offensive side. They came out and FNS just had a read on every site that they were going to.
Yeah.
They stacked Food and Caboose on the B site and the pistol round, which is the normal site that Sentinels like to go to. We got that lesson from Wyatt a couple of days ago. He'd been running the numbers.
Yep.
And then they stacked them over towards C, and they read the anti-eco really well as Sentinels just went towards C in the second round, I think it was. And then in this round 3 as well, Sentinels end up on A, and or rather they go for the B push, I think, and they just get crushed on the retake. Actually, I don't think this is the round I was thinking of. But anyway, the first 7 rounds, they had at least half the time FNS had read exactly where they wanted to go and was stacking Food in particular, but often Caboose as well, in positions to crush them. And just, they knew where Sentinels were going before Sentinels did. It was a complete outplay by the IGL.
I've also, this game as well, though, in regards to like the story of the scene, the narrative, Envy and Sentinels have played so many times, and Envy have always lost, and it's never even really looked like they could really win. They've had some close maps.
I could be wrong with this, but I don't think, until they beat them in the upper bracket here, I don't think they'd ever won a map off them.
That was their first series win over Sentinels.
It was their first series win.
But was it their first map win as well?
On
I
Haven?
I thought they'd just been 2-0'd every time.
I don't know if that's true, but this is the first time that upper bracket game was definitely the first time that they had actually beaten them, and the finals performance was even more dominant. But in terms of the story, it is very cool that they had finally been able to do that, because that was the hurdle that they could never get over whenever they were making deep runs in tournaments.
Yeah.
So now this really opens it up to a scenario where you feel like Envy can come in and actually just win any tournament, because that was really the thing for me that always had them just outside of that we can win a tournament tier, was that they could just never get over Sen. But now doing it here twice, they really are in that tier where you feel if there's a tournament, Envy can win.
Yeah,
I'm inclined
sorry, I'm
to
chatting
agree with
nonsense. They have taken maps off them in the past.
Well, there was also semifinals. That was the actual first series win over them, was semifinals,
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah, the upper
the-
bracket.
The upper
That's right.
bracket.
I think
yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
great point, though, Wyatt, running the Envy, because there's so many different teams in kind of just being gatekept out of almost the top tier 1 level. I think of like Immortals as well as another one of these teams that they can make it really deep into a tournament, but every time they go up against what seems like a team that they perceive to be above them, like either, I don't know, Sentinels, 100 Thieves, whatever, they tend to lose a lot of that confidence and what even got them to the upper bracket in the first place. But with Envy, it wasn't the case this time around. They actually ended up going all the way. But I am left wondering how much of this is going to be able to be replicated consistently. Because it felt like, for me, watching it, this is the best tournament that Food's ever had. Yeah, you can argue that it was off the back of the support of his teammates, FNS, and Crashies also playing really, really well. But how much of it do we actually expect this to carry on and forward into the future for Envy? Because, okay, one tournament showing, pretty good, but the last thing you want is to be able to peak at Challengers 2. You know, you still got Challengers finals to come, or should I say Masters?
Yeah. But I think, so for me, this takes, well, first of all, a lot of people seem to think for some reason that Sentinels weren't taking this seriously. That's nonsense. It was a 50k tournament. They were playing seriously. So this is a huge achievement from Envy, and you shouldn't take anything away from them there. It's a massive tournament win. But do I think Envy are going to now go on to be the best team in North America and win all of the tournaments? No, I don't think so. But I think this is a really important step for them to show that they can win those tournaments. And so I don't think that this is a once-in-a-lifetime performance from Envy, but I also don't think it's going to be replicated every time. I think Envy have a chance of being able to win Masters. Are they the favorites coming in just because they won Challengers 2? No, I don't even think that would be the case. But what they showed this tournament was excellent. I mean, their teamwork and their trading off each other was impeccable. FNS's IGLing, impeccable. So even if they're not hitting their shots, all of the surrounding stuff, all of the building, the foundation, the teamwork, and the prep that they had done was elite. Mm-hmm. And that will all continue and be replicable in next tournaments, even if the players aren't individually having the same level.
Yeah. I think it's really... I honestly think it's very tough to give a hard answer to that question at the moment. I just think we need to see them more past this point. I do wonder as well, coming into this, I feel like Sentinels probably came in thinking, to some extent, that they had won before the game started because they just always beat Envy. I mean, that was one of the things when we had Dapper on Backchat and spoke to him. It was like, we always beat Envy. Like, you guys struggle with Envy? I think in reference talking about like TSM or something. I can't remember exactly. But like, oh, you guys struggle with Envy? We always beat them. And I do wonder if they just kind of came in thinking again, like, we're just going to beat them. But now they have to have a mental shift when they play in whatever their next series is. Very possible that they're going to meet in the Challengers main event. Yeah. And they're going to have to come in with, you know, in their minds rating Envy as a tougher opponent than they may have here, thinking that it would be a sure win. But yeah, I think it's just so tough to call if it's going to be something they can replicate, because this is, I mean, as you were saying, this is the best tournament that Food has had. It is by far.
Yeah. I mean, the numbers he was putting up, I don't know if you can find the overall tournament numbers for Food, Kurt, on VLR for Challengers 2, but they were just ridiculous.
This is that
even for the
dynamic
finals, he went 53 and 19. 53 19.
I mean, that is one of the most insane stats in a final you've seen in Valorant so far, by the way. Yeah. Not just for Food. That is one of the best performance. That might be the best performance in a grand final in Valorant so far. Genuinely.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, that is mental. That is ridiculous. Yeah. So very unlikely he can do that again. Yeah. Because that is just remarkable. Yeah. I mean, that is insane. That is so far in Valorant history, that is like history book shit that we witnessed. So can he do that again? Unlikely, but he shouldn't have to do that for them to win. He just needs to be at a consistent level.
I mean, the point as well is they didn't even need to win on Haven to be able to win, right? Like,
winning Haven
this was
like,
such an
ridiculous.
unbelievable crushing win for Envy. They beat Sentinels on their worst map and Sentinels' best map, and then they 13-3'd them on Bind, which is Sentinels' permaban. So even if Haven had gone the other way, and Food isn't dropping, 53 and 19, maybe Food has a more reasonable performance that you would normally expect of him, they probably have a great shot of still winning this series. So I think the margin here was so large of them still winning that it should be feasible that they can win again in the future. Now, whether or not they do is another question entirely, because Sentinels have always been able to rebound from these kind of losses. They've never gone out of a tournament since they started getting good. They've never lost a tournament except to the people that win it, and they've almost always made the finals, and they have a huge amount of wins. They're still the number one team in North America, judging over the last 3 months. And their ability to rebound is exceptional. Every time they lose to a team that then goes on to win the tournament, they come back next time and they beat them. It's remarkable the consistency with which they're able to adapt to their opponents and overcome them. And we've seen it before every time with the 100 Thieves and with Immortals and LG before in the past as well. Or rather, LG, not Immortals. So, yeah, I still have a lot of faith in Sentinels here, even though they got crushed.
Before we move on, Avast, any final words?
Oh
on this
my
topic?
God! I get to get the final words today.
You do
there
get
we
the
go.
final words,
I'm so.
you know?
I mean, I was gonna say, on top of the fact that we don't know how consistent Envy's gonna be, because I really feel like this was just like an amazing series for them confidence-wise, which you're not gonna replicate every game. Also, the meta is not even the same moving forward. Past
That's
challengers,
very true.
the meta is not going to be the same anymore. So who really knows exactly if this performance is going to be possible in a different meta too? Like, they can keep that up on top of all the other factors, because it's just going to be a different play style moving forward. So I don't think they're going to be the clear number one at all moving forward. I actually think that NA is probably almost as in flux as in EU right now, in terms of, like, though obviously I don't think there are as many good teams, but I feel like we're in a pretty, like, a state of flux currently with, like, who is really the number one.
It's really cool actually having the just thought experiment right now about what the rankings are coming into Masters. Like, maybe we'll do that in one of the future weeks as we get closer to Masters, what our predictions are and what we think the rankings look like coming in. But until that tournament concludes, there's so many questions about where teams actually stack up.
All right, let's move on. Let's talk about the other teams that made it into Masters in this tournament as well, because there were a few of them, because Challengers 2 was actually where we got to see the teams finally qualify.
Yeah.
If you finish in the top 4. So we got Immortals, XSET, Envy, and Sentinels making the Masters tournament, which is going to be played in, 6 weeks, I think?
Is it 6 weeks from now?
Maybe. Actually, I'm not too sure, actually.
I thought it was sooner than that, but
I thought they had a 2-week break in between Challengers 3 and...
As soon as we start talking about the format,
I could
anyway,
be wrong.
Immortals.
Anyways,
Immortals, they did okay,
we can
but
bring
then
them
they
back.
didn't.
We can talk about Immortals here, because Immortals as a team, they looked like they were obviously coming off the back of Challengers 1, looking very good, very strong. And then they went for a weird mid-tournament switch up where they were taking Shot Up away from the Reyna and putting him on all sorts of roles, like the Breach. They had him on the Killjoy, I believe, on Icebox.
Well, yeah, not every time as well. They put him only for one map.
And he
they played
started
him
the
on
tournament
Icebox.
as Reyna on Icebox.
Yes.
And then switched to Killjoy, and it was not pretty. It was this Icebox game against Envy.
And I wonder, I was just going to say, I wonder if that is something that they planned ahead of time. Like, they've been saving these strategies, these unique compositions, to try and, I don't know, outthink the teams they were going up against in terms of their prep. Throw a wrench into the plans, or I don't really
know exactly what the idea is behind these moves, but there's a couple of different theories there, right? Like, specifically against Envy, where he moves over from the Reyna to the Killjoy. Envy are the kind of team on Icebox where they play in mid a lot. Like, that team, more so than maybe any team. I guess Gen.G do it quite a lot on their attacking half as well. But Envy will put a heavy emphasis in mid. Every time when they plant on B or A, they've got a lurker through mid. Normally on A, it's like Crashy's working through mid. And when they plant B, it's FNS works through mid. And in the round itself, they default a lot of players towards mid at the beginning to try and draw the defenders towards that area so that they can free up the extremities. And so maybe Immortals just thought, well, if we have the Killjoy utility, we'll actually be able to hold those areas a little more. The problem is that they just dumped all that Killjoy utility on A with the Viper Wall and then never held A. The strategy itself, you can kind of understand maybe where they were coming from, but the execution was non-existent.
It
was really weird.
It was definitely frustrating to watch them just not even attempt to hold the A site over and over and over. Envy just got it for free, and worse than that, Envy's comp was brutal for post plants. It's so good. They had 3 mollies because they had a Killjoy and a Phoenix, and they had a Raze, all for utility to throw onto the spike that they got to plant in the open for free every round, and then play back towards belt and just spam utility onto the spike. So they would never lose a post plant. Yeah. With that comp, they had to fight for A site. Also, just on this map, holding A site passively for 1 kill and then getting out and playing retake is just so good. So I was not a fan of that gameplay from Immortals on this map. Their defense really just fell to pieces, and I just don't think they were getting enough value from the Killjoy. I think Shot should have just stayed on Reyna here. I mean, we've spoken to it before how good Reyna is on this map.
But this was unusual, right? Like, this wasn't... this was just for one map where Shut Up went over to the Killjoy and it didn't work. The whole tournament dynamic for Killjoy was really the move to the breach, I think.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Which was strange in itself, actually, watching him play the breach. Because you can tell, at least watching and comparing EU to NA, the North American teams that try and utilize breach, obviously maybe used to playing against him because there was a period of time where he was being played, but it's not as quick off the button when it comes to like the utility usage and like working off your breach's utility usage and the flashes and pushing off the back of it. That wasn't really there, and that comes with reps. So it striked me as something that they were experimenting with, that they weren't comfortable with, because Shot Up was playing with such an individualistic style. He was so free. It was the most American style of breach I'd ever seen. He was playing off of his own utility, and there wasn't really much setting up of other players. Like, you compare this style of breach to, I mean, the most drastic, I think, comparison would be the way that Eccles supports Scream. Probably, sure. Right? Sure. Like, that is like, it was night and day almost in terms of the way that they played it. But yeah, it's you can see the thought process behind a lot of this, but I feel like they just threw it into this tournament, and it didn't work because they lacked reps in a lot of the ways.
Yeah, I agree. That being said, I feel like we started on a kind of a negative note because you reminded me of that Icebox game, and I just got mentally boomed thinking about that again. But in reality, this was still a good showing overall from Immortals, especially with the comp changes. They were still able to beat a good Gen.G, and then they beat Luminosity. They qualified. So despite, definitely, I agree, just needing more reps with the breach, needing more time practicing in the server with it, they were still able to succeed, still able to beat 2 really solid teams and qualify. So still, at the end of the day, a good performance from Immortals.
A great performance.
But in my mind right now, they are at a place where they're going to be able to make those semifinals. They're going to be able to be ranked in that like top 6, top 5 NA, but I'm not confident in their ability to win tournaments yet. Also could be a thing where they need more reps. Their players are very young and very new, and that is the thing about Immortals. They put together very economically viable teams. They get more out of their teams for the money that they put into them, but in doing that, they are getting inexperienced young players, and right now they have 5 of them, and they're going to need more time, I think, against the top teams in these deep tournament, high-pressure scenarios, because I do feel like watching the games right now, there are individuals on the team that start to underperform. It looks like they start to miss easier shots that you would think they'd never miss. Things like that, which are signifiers of nerves to me. So I think with a little more time, maybe they'll get to a place where at least, well, for me, I feel like they could win tournaments. But right now, I feel like they've gotten themselves into a solid place where they can be a consistent, we can make a semi-final type team.
I mean, I can even see them being a consistent, we can make finals kind of team right now. Like, I think they're a very, very good team. The problem is when they make it to that final and they play against that like elite level team, they seem to crumble a little bit. I really liked everything that they brought to this tournament. I felt like if Envy weren't on the incredible hot streak that they were, Immortals would have booked their ticket to another final to play against Sentinels. Like, if Envy weren't in this tournament, or rather, if Envy were having the same performance in this tournament that we've seen from them over the prior 2 months instead of just these couple of weeks, you would anticipate those two teams to be making the finals. But you saw how that played out in the lower bracket final, exactly how it played out in the grand final of the previous tournament, which was just a slapping from Sentinels to Immortals.
Although I do think it was better than last time.
Yeah,
It felt way more
somewhat.
one-sided in the previous one. At least with this one, I think the first half was at least relatively even. But
Yeah.
in both of these maps, actually,
Sentinels ran
my
away with the second.
takeaway was towards the end of each map, they just lost steam.
Yeah.
It felt like they lost confidence in themselves again.
What a tournament, though. It's going to go under the radar because there were so many great players on Envy that had exceptional tournaments like Food and Crashies. But what a tournament from Gangster, actually.
Yeah, man.
The Gangster Stanny duo, when Immortals were playing on Ascent, but also just when they play on every map, is so damn good. It's the backbone of that team, and Gangster gets so much value out of utility, is always in the right position. They're so intelligent, that duo, with how they play around the map, and they're so aware of where the opponents can be at any one time. And what I love about Immortals as well is, more so than maybe any team that I watch, they know which areas of the map to fight really heavily over. Like they will fight to the death over showers on Bind. They will, and then when they play on Ascent, they've started fighting really heavily for A main control. They'll give up the whole of the A site so that they can play retakes from A main and from like the Heaven retake. And it's so interesting that they are just willing to put down a huge amount of utility to occupy the same area, instead of a lot of other teams will fight over an area. Okay, they forced out utility, we'll give it up, we'll fall back to site. All right, we've fallen back from site to back Heaven because we're setting up for the retake. Immortals, instead, they fight tooth and nail for specific areas that'll set them up well for retake. And I think that's such an interesting strategic style for this team that bears them very well.
Yeah, I so impressed with Gangsta. Again, for the millionth time. He's just been such a solid player since he's been playing the game. Yeah. I mean, he's been really consistent the entire time. But god damn, his ults are so good. He really, his timing, his awareness of where players are, and also just the pre-existing work that goes into having lineups for so many different scenarios. He really is different.
It's rare for him to have a bad tournament. That's the thing. It's the consistency.
Yeah, he's pretty consistent. I also feel like moving JC Stoney. Though granted, I am an original OG JC Stoney simp, but now he's no longer he's no longer IGL anymore, so I can't quite. I feel like I have to turn down my contributions to his OnlyFans as much now. He's no longer an IGL. But I feel like moving him off of IGL actually and picking up Nature was really good. Like for this team, actually. I think a lot, but you can see the difference. Like you talked about that solid duo between Ginks and JC Stanley, because he's just so much more. He's just able to just do more because he's not worried about using his mouth to tell people what to do. He's only worried about the click and the shoot. And I feel like he gets a lot of value now because he's such a smart player. And so moving him off by IGL, I think, was a really good move for Immortals. I was also interested to think where, like, for me, it was more interesting for Immortals more so than their run. Even though everyone's like, oh, I can't wait to see Immortals win. But it was the LG match, because that was like the two teams that everyone hated playing each other, you know? It was like the one-trick Judge player and the no-comms Jett Opera-only player, like, facing off in a battle of fates, you know? And I feel like the Immortals definitely, it was close, but I feel like Immortals, the strategy of just holding those key areas of the map and just, like, exploding out when necessary definitely was the counter to the let's not let them know where we're at and play, like, what was that one movie with the guy from The Office who was like, you have to be silent or else the monsters find you. That's how LG play. And, you know, I feel like the holding the key areas of the map and then exploding was, like, really, really good for Immortals versus LG. Because LG just didn't have the map control. They just didn't have the map control.
I mean, this is also kind of tying into what we were saying about LG when they first really had a good performance in Challengers 1, right? Which was that, give enough time, teams will learn how to play instinctively against LG.
Yeah,
with their lack of information kind of style. Like, as good as that is, it's also, presumably, once you get a handle and a read on what they're doing, very easy to punish.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, maybe not very easy to punish, but it's
No,
certainly
Josh, very easy.
it's certainly easier than when you have no idea how they're playing. I think that's also why you two were really high on XSET stonks coming into the tournament
Still
too.
was, still am.
More high than you were on LG for the future, because XSET demonstrated this ability to play a pretty well-rounded game rather than relying on like that unique
Don't put words in my
contact
mouth.
style. All right, well, I'm
But that
going to
is
allow
true.
you to put words in your own
That's
mouth
true.
because you thought XSET were going to beat Sentinels and like make it to the finals.
I never said the finals. Wait, so you're listening to your Twitch chat too much? Because I never said that XSET would make it to the finals.
All right, well,
No, you said they'd win the tournament, I think.
I don't think I said they won the tournament.
You bet in my Twitch chat. You bet channel points that XSET would beat Sentinels. If they had done that, they would have got at least to the lower bracket finals, wouldn't they?
No,
Yes.
so I bet that, but only because the odds were good. I wasn't expecting them to win, but I am.
He's a
glad.
betting man. He's
So
a
here's the
numbers
thing.
man.
I mean, we seem to be moving on to XSET anyway, naturally through this. But I've always been a big fan of what XSET are showing because they are just the new up-and-comers onto the scene, rock solid fundamentals. But my general takeaway from this was, I think their match against Envy, I thought they underperformed, but I now know that I think that it was actually just Envy performing incredibly well. In this match, in this series here. My takeaway from that first match was that, oh man, XSET are just kind of crumbling. I mean, it was one-sided. But they came back into the lower bracket. Obviously, when it went up against FaZe Clan, pretty easy win. Went up against LG, and won in a 2-0 fashion, not as easy.
That's very impressive, though.
It was very impressive. And I think that's maybe quite indicative of probably just them getting used to their style, of LG's style. I imagine, I mean, this is just pure speculation, but I imagine XSET as a new up-and-coming team, LG is a reasonably new up-and-coming team. They probably practice against each other quite a bit, as what happens in those kind of circles. But the game against Sentinels is the one I want to hone in on here, because I felt like we saw just a regression of XSET, particularly in the post-plants. I was fucking molding watching this team in the post-plant scenarios, throwing away so many rounds. Look at the amount of wins the Sentinels get from defusing the bomb. It's insane. It's actually insane. They were throwing so many situations in the post-plants by just... but here's the thing, it was minor mistakes that you're just not going to get away with when you're trying to go up against the top of tier 1.
Yeah, I don't know if they were minor mistakes, honestly. I think they were pretty.
But it was like
they were significant. But it
the
all
post
came from
plant will
the
be
same
occurring.
place.
The example that always sticks out of my mind is like one player just deciding on a whim to like push something.
Well, they were just trying to do too much.
Yeah.
They were trying to
Kurt,
do too much.
Can you find a clip of Aaron trying to blast pack jump into a heaven on Haven?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
That was funny and the epitome of this discussion, I feel.
They were being.
I've just remembered that.
I feel like it seemed like in their minds they felt like they had to like push the limits to beat Sentinels, rather than if they just
I could see
relied on their solid established fundamentals and utility usage that we've seen them have for the past couple months. They would have just won out those situations, but it felt like to me they were just trying to be extra because they felt like they had to, but they didn't have to because they're a really solid team. And I think more than anything in this tournament, I am impressed with the mental fortitude that they showed, because they started off getting rolled by Envy 13-1 on Split, and that came off the back of them switching their comp around on Split away from the Viper Killjoy breach, to now running a Sage, and they didn't look practiced enough on it. They were playing an ultra passive game. Envy kind of just did whatever they wanted. They really fell flat, and then on Bind, it just looked like XSET had no confidence. There were situations where Envy would push them, and they were literally just trying to run away, which it doesn't get more telltale that they had no confidence than that. I mean, literally, they would just they would take their knives out and run away. And to come back from that, and in the game against FaZe in the lower bracket, they started down 8-1, and then came back, won that map, beat FaZe, beat LG. I'm very impressed by that, and obviously they made Masters as well. They've been a very consistent team so far in the year 2021.
They're definitely the team that's going the most under the radar out of these upcoming teams. A lot of people paying attention to Immortals because they've gone very deep in tournaments. A lot of people paying attention to LG because people are molding about how they play. But then fewer people are paying attention to XSET, even though they've made Masters, I feel. Because I don't know, because they're not as unique, perhaps, or not as flashy as these other teams. They're just a really solid squad.
It's a lack of
considering
name
where they were, I feel like this wasn't a terrible run for them, considering where they've started out their trajectory, all things considered. I feel like this run for them in qualifying for Masters is a really good run. Even though they got shellacked by Sentinels and they got kind of shellacked by Envy, like end of the day, they qualified for Masters. And they started out as a team that really a lot of people, aside from maybe Bren, who had looked into his crystal ball and had divined that XSET was, going to be amazing. I feel like this team has kind of exploded compared to everyone else. That's like, because Immortals, we've known their structure for a long time. We've known Packington and Gumba, and they've built good rosters before and have had success. But XSET just kind of exploded out here and is now in Masters, while TSM and 100 Thieves and all these other rosters you'd expect are not. So even if they did not look amazing at points, I feel like they only have room to grow. And because this roster is so young, I feel, and also they actually think that I love when teams play Viper and actually know how to play Viper, because even though when they lost, their usage of Viper is so, it really shows how much they understand splitting a site and like just denying information to people. And I feel like when you see that, when you see other NA teams tripping over their shoelaces trying to play Breach, there's hope. There's hope for this team, I feel like, moving forward and like getting a lot better.
Well, yeah, these guys have an excellent sense of utility in the game, and it's why they've been so consistent. Their players aren't reliant on pure mechanical skill. On both a team-wide sense and an individual sense, they know how to use utility to outplay opponents in either, XVX team scenarios or just one-on-one. Like you will see Pure uses Jett utility very well to just find picks across the map. But yeah, I mean, these guys have been... They're one of the teams that has just been on the low improving for a long time. So it's, like they've flown under the radar and people didn't really pay them much mind. But in reality, they've been just grinding away on the low for a while. And now they're getting the benefits of that. But yeah, I think that I don't know if they're going to be in a place come Masters where they can make it to a final or deeper than a semi, but regardless, they're in a very good spot, and I'm impressed with where they're at.
It's a long time until Masters, theoretically. I mean, we don't know. We're speculating on that. We don't. There should be dates out there. We don't know what they are.
Yeah, I'm sure the dates do.
But it is a while. It's like Challengers 3, and then they've got presumably a week break, if not 2.
Yeah, I mean, they've got at least a month.
Masters. I mean, they've got a while to show up. But part of the reason that I have always been so on this team has been for the reasons you mentioned. I think just the general all around, but it's been the little moments, like the timings. There's a sense of, how would you describe it? I mean, it's a sense of like having a read of the opponents and finding the right moments, and that kind of level of game sense that doesn't come from like the utility usage, but like just an understanding of where people could be at a given time. That shows that this team is. It just shows that this team is drilled. And they have clearly done research on their opponents, or at least clearly have some sort of understanding of when they're in the game that's better than a lot of other teams at the moment when it comes to just their flow and understanding of the way that rounds play out. And that's one of the things that's always impressed me. I mean, BCJ is the name that I always bring up, this guy, because he plays the Sova and the Omen for them. Whenever he's on the Omen, I love what he does, because he is just always finding the appropriate times to just either backstab, create fantastic flanking opportunities, and it's that coupled with the fact that this team is so fundamentally sound that makes them so promising, and the fact that they've just risen in such a short amount of time. I mean, it's so promising as well. On top of that, I like the prospect of having another top team in North America to look forward to. Do you guys want to talk about Envy and Sentinels?
We've already talked about
we just really talked about it. I mean, I don't know if you wanted to add anything on about Sentinels at all as a team, but I imagine we'll talk about them as well, because this next topic, we're talking about 100 Thieves and their failure to qualify again, and all the drama that encompasses that. And this is, 100 Thieves got one more chance now to qualify in the Challengers 3 for Masters, that is. And yeah, I mean, is ping an excuse? Is my question. Because that is the that is the overwhelming response I've seen. And I think it's just what happens when you get fan bases like 100 Thieves coming into the scene. But my God, you can tell how new some people are to esports. Like the 30 ping difference fiasco.
Listen, okay. What were the scores here again? It was 13-6 and 13-4 on Haven.
4. They got shellacked.
Okay. Listen up.
That can be explained by 30 ping.
If one team playing on 40 ping and one team playing on 12 ping results in one team losing 13-4, and that's the reason, cancel all the events this year. It's over. Stop playing. Don't play Valorant anymore. Cancel every tournament. Don't play. Because that would just, I mean, it's just a silly notion.
It is.
It's just silly.
They don't even know true ping difference because they don't know what it was like when you were 100 ping on Soldier versus the 30 ping Scout in TF2. You know, they don't truly know what it's like and with true ping differences and like terrible netcode where you have to exec a fucking essay to make sure your game is playable. Like they just don't understand. Like true ping differences are not available in Valorant.
Yeah, no, genuinely. Available. I mean, yeah. Also, games hit scan. I mean, you know, obviously ping does matter, but it matters when you're up in the like high double digits into 100+. Not
and then also
that is a silly thing. But
you could say. I mean, the online world is gonna be very different to the LAN world. But when you're playing online, you have to be playing on servers that are the best for where everybody's living. 100 Thieves are scattered across the US right now. And they picked this server. I mean, why they picked this server rather than Chicago or like the Illinois server, I'm not 100% sure. I think that's the one they normally play on. But 100 Thieves chose to play on this Texas server. And I think probably the reason is that it gives the best ping for all of their players, like the most even ping for all of their players. And also, 0.03 seconds of extra delay can't make the difference between a 13-4, 13-6 kind of game. And to say that, the players aren't even saying that. It's all just coming from the fans. So this is just for the weirdo fans out there.
And also, not a lot of fans. Like if I
it's
feel
not
like
a lot, no.
I
but
think
it's
the
a sizable
response,
amount.
It's an I mean, there are definitely some.
But is it coming from Twitch
it.
chat or forums though? Because Twitch chat is essentially just like an infinite monkey typewriter theorem where they're spewing out like random crap all the time. You know? I also come out with bangers. There was one in your chat, Josh, where someone said that whoever discovers the fraud ethics conspiracy and writes that paper will win the gaming Pulitzer. And I thought that was one of the best Twitch chat moments I've ever seen. Was that? So you know you get some, and you lose some. You know?
It's Shakespeare. Sometimes they write Hamlet. Sometimes they write it was the blurst of times.
There it is. Gamer Society Joker 2019. It's so good.
It's worth bringing up this point, though, even if it is, because I think it is a sizable amount of fans.
It was the most upvoted thing this week on Valorant Competitive, with Shazam saying,
and on
100
all
Thieves
social
picked
media,
the server.
On all social media,
How is
on
that
Twitter,
the biggest thing of the week.
On Twitter, the responses were all like, "Well, the ping, like what you were saying, why when you were digging up this evidence?"
Okay, yes. But I was saying, like, if you went to some of the players' tweets, whatever, like on about the game, like, oh, whatever, GG, we lost. If you look under it at the replies, there is a guy with like 50 likes on all of them. It's like, I mean, I guess GG, but what's with the ping difference, 12 to 40? So there were some people saying that, but I do feel like there's been a bigger response. I mean, I feel like there has been a bigger response to that silly than people actually thinking that it's reality. So it is just something. I mean, it's just silly.
It's just ridiculous. But also, it's taken away from the true discussion around why 100 Thieves actually lost. Because not just, like, obviously, most people don't believe it's the ping, but everyone's got tied up in talking about the ping.
I wonder if it's the psychology of it. That's what I want to bring up.
What do you mean?
Like
Go on then, Bren. Yep, no, this will be worthwhile.
You know, like people hold pro players in a high regard.
Yes.
Right, in the highest of regards. If you're playing a game a lot, you look up to the pro players. You're watching their streams. You're buying the same mouse mat, the same clothes, the same chair.
Same clothes.
Yep, same clothes.
Same
that's where Avast got his carrot hoodie from. That's a vintage
Who
caboose.
did I get it from?
That's a caboose.
Oh,
you steal it from Caboose's wardrobe.
Does Caboose have a? I haven't seen him. I haven't seen him with the carrot hoodie. I feel like, but you know, it could be a caboose thing. I feel like he's more of a rutabaga type of guy.
What if
you know?
Rutabaga hoodie?
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a
yeah.
rutabaga hoodie.
What is okay? To get back on track to my really serious point about the psychology of this, what if people are so attached to this ping point because it gives them justification in their heads for their poor performances in game?
I definitely agree that
Another
that's the reason.
element of
100%.
like I knew it. That's why I lost that game.
No, it's 100% that.
because they had
But
better
that's every
ping than
gamer
me.
does that though. So I mean, it's a natural response. It's as natural as seeking shelter or fire when it's dark outside.
and then when they see
when you lose,
when they see it happen to the pro players, they're like, well, if it's happening to the pros, you know, it's happening to me.
Yeah.
You know, and I wonder if that's one part of the reason why it's been such a vocal minority is how I'm going to say this, because it's not everyone, but it is sizable enough that we have made it a segment, kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, he's right.
Okay, but
Holy shit, he's right.
the dynamic about 100 Thieves losing here has been obscured in the mess about this discussion as well. And 100 Thieves got rolled in this game against Sentinels, right? Like, this wasn't anywhere near as close as any of their other games. This has not happened before. The Sentinels and 100 Thieves previously, they've had a very close rivalry. It's normally gone down to Icebox pretty much every time. Sentinels have always won Haven, 100 Thieves have always won Ascent, goes down to Icebox. You know, maybe Sentinels throw in the bind instead of the Ascent, and we're wondering whether that makes a difference in the series. This was a shellacking. It was just dominance. And okay, Sentinels win on Haven, so I'm not going to discuss that too much. But the Ascent gameplay was a fundamental outplaying. They read the fact that 100 Thieves love to run this really slow spread default on their attacking half, and Sick knew that he could just challenge and take 1v1s every time in mid. If he swings wide in mid, he's never going to meet multiple people, because that's never how 100 Thieves hold mid. And 100 Thieves don't play early round for mid control. Like, you look at a heat map of where 100 Thieves are, you could genuinely be a numbers analyst and come up with this strat, because you can see it from the API data of the pace that 100 Thieves play at, that Sick is always going to be able to play aggressively on catwalk and take those 1v1s. And he just snowballed. He snowballed out of control with his Phoenix ults, and he was taking the 1v1s and hitting the shots, and there was nothing that 100 Thieves did to adapt to stop him. They didn't increase the pace. They didn't put more pressure towards there. They weren't able to uproot him. Has Sick been able to do this against anybody else on Ascent so far? No, not really. He didn't have that kind of a performance against any other team on Ascent. But against 100 Thieves, they had a specific idea of where he should play and how he should play, and it worked brilliantly, and they got thoroughly outplayed. And this goes back to my original point about Sentinels. The more time you give them to play against other opponents, Shazam's going to come up with a good strategy of how to beat them. They've done it against other teams in the past, and they did it here against 100 Thieves. And that, I think, is something that they deserve a lot of credit for, and something 100 Thieves have to come back in Challengers 3 and really, like, reconsider whether they've been... whether they need to change up their style when it comes to this map, because it is their best map. But when one map is your best, it's the one that people have the most data on. It's the one that they know how you play the most. And like with Sentinels on Haven, you can be counter-stratted on it. And this was, in my opinion, just a pretty fundamental counter-stratting, and then Sick also popping off.
Yeah, hard agree. They just completely understood how to play the map control game. Played it to a T. Sick was on fire, but he was also enabled by... Yeah, as you were saying, just the read. He knew exactly how to outplay them, how and when to push Cat. He was just getting mega value. He was just played excellently this series. But I mean, overall, 100 Thieves, I mean, pretty rough tournament. If we wanted to take it away from the Sentinels game, because I don't really have much more to say. I think you hit the key point, which is their read of them. They also lost to Luminosity.
Yeah.
To even be in the lower bracket.
And they threw away so many post plants in that game, too. Like, they actually... I don't know how many diffuses or whatever you can spot across these series, but it felt like a huge amount going towards LG. I mean, there on Ascent, there's a lot of them. And then there again, there's a ton. But it really did feel like a lot of key rounds were getting thrown away because 100 Thieves just couldn't get it together in post plants.
Yeah. Moose had an excellent series here. Really... impressive, honestly, on Luminosity. He was playing very well. He continues to impress me, especially being such a new face in the scene.
I feel like that series was... Oh, sorry, go ahead, Bren.
I was going to say, my question is, though, how is this going to be affecting 100 Thieves then moving forwards? Because Challengers 1, understandable, okay? I mean, the circumstances that were around that, fair enough. Challengers 2, the first opportunity to actually qualify for Masters. I mean, this is not a great showing for 100 Thieves. Our expectations for this team coming into 2021 were very high. We were anticipating this team to be right there at the top of Tier 1. Now, they're still a top team in North America, don't get me wrong, to even get to this point. They're still up there. But we're expecting a little bit more, I think, from them, especially off the back of this. So what are we making of this moving into Challengers 3 then, Avast?
Well, I'm uniquely positioned already to answer this because that was I was watching Steel the other day because sometimes it's you're surfing around, you're like, I'll go to the Steel stream because it's fun to watch him get really mad at ranked players. That's what he does mostly on a stream, is he gets really mad at ranked players. And he was talking about how I feel like they developed, and he was talking about how they developed, like they had won a tournament and then everyone just figured out how they played. Essentially, he said they have to like change everything. Essentially, they felt like they innovated a lot of strats and they like did a lot of things differently that a lot of people weren't doing, especially like with how good especially with just how well they were able to take map control and like lurk off that map control and like what information they had. And Steel said they needed to like change everything moving forward because they've been completely figured out. So I think they are going to go to the drawing board and try to change up their style drastically. Also unrelated, but sort of related, I feel like the Luminosity game in particular was so rough because Asuna had like a bad series. And if Asuna has a bad series, 100 Thieves kind of collapse because they rely so heavily on him to get injuries. And the rest of them play so passively where Asuna has to be like kind of the tip of the spear.
Yeah.
Where it's so hard for them to like make space and get picks without Asuna being like in form.
Definitely agree with that point of us. Yeah, I think this was what I was going to bring up as well. It was a particularly poor tournament. Like Dicey actually played better than he has done in a lot of recent tournaments. And Nitro looked really good as well. But they had a very quiet tournament from Asuna and Hiko as well, to be honest. There was no notable moments from Hiko from what I can remember. So I think, yeah, I totally agree with your argument about the tip of the spear. They rely so much on Asuna having that entry component for them because Dicey doesn't really do that even when he's playing the Jett on attack. So I think this shouldn't just indicate to them that Asuna needs to have a good tournament. I think it also needs to indicate to them that Dicey needs to do more of that role too, because you can't just live or die on whether or not Asuna's popping off.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like some of the changes they're making. Looking back at that Icebox game, like they're trying out the Sage, which was nice, but having Asuna playing on the Sage, I just don't think was the right move for him. Having a Sage, good idea. Him playing it, I again would like to see him on the Reyna on that map.
Shut up.
Yeah, he's right. Asuna's had just so many really, really strong games on Reyna, on Icebox. He's kind of always been the standout player on that map for them. And he was just relegated to playing Sage and putting a wall onto the corner of A site and then trying to plant behind it. And that
really
wall,
bad position.
dead that wall. All teams, dead that wall. I don't want to see it ever again. It's not a good wall.
No,
it just forced Asuna to try to place the spike in the very corner of sight on every A hit. And if one segment of that wall gets broken, he has to stop. The plant is boomed. He has to rotate around to the other side of A, and then they basically self-funnel their whole team onto having to go through the only other side into the A site because they can no longer access the right side and try to plant there.
And the defenders know that
the wall. Yeah. All teams. And I saw Sentinels start doing it. Please, I don't want to see it anymore.
Yeah, it's not a good wall. It also just gives the retakers control of the entirety of the site. They don't have to worry about any of the 50-50 angles because they've seen your wall position and they know that you're not playing for site control. You're playing just to fall back, which isn't the best way of repelling retaking A at all.
Seems they're pretty comfortable in their understanding, at least. I know Steel was saying on stream that, that's a cool camera shot. Steel was saying, sorry,
you are a squirrel.
That's
mesmerized by it.
God,
that was cool.
Guy.
I was inside the little, inside the glass thing. Steel was saying that, I think on stream he said that he knows what they did wrong, or at least he thinks he knows what they did wrong.
Yeah.
and obviously he wasn't going to talk about it on stream, but they seem to have a clear understanding of what went wrong for them in this tournament, which is good. Okay, the last thing you want is for them to start using vague terms and describing how they lost, like, I don't know, it just wasn't our game, or which in some cases it wasn't. I think some players clearly underperformed, but hopefully they end up performing better again. Challengers 3.
Yeah, they're still favorites to be able to make it through to Masters the next time around.
Yeah,
and I fully believe that they can rectify the issues that they had
I think
forward.
I think they
that's for
lost
sure.
the series against LG rather than LG winning it. I think 100 Thieves made more mistakes there, and I would expect usually that 100 Thieves would be able to take that. I think it was a good win for LG for sure to be able to beat a tier 1 team like that, but 100 Thieves, if you play it out more times again in the future, I think they're the team that's going to improve rather than LG, and 100 Thieves will maintain the lead.
Okay. There's a couple more teams that they just didn't qualify. Let's be real here. LG, which we've already talked about, Gen.G and FaZe. Why you really wanted to talk about FaZe?
No, I
Clan?
don't. I never want to talk about FaZe again. And it's nothing. It's nothing against FaZe. I feel like there's been so much discussion about FaZe, and maybe it's because everybody wants to hear FaZe talked about because Overwatch and Overwatch. So all I hear about is FaZe Clan. I go to sleep at night. I wake up in the middle of the night with cold sweats. Oh, baby. I have trouble getting back to sleep. All I think about is FaZe. They've taken over my life, and I don't want to hear about FaZe anymore. I don't want to talk about FaZe anymore. But I wish them the best in Challengers 3.
I say we make Wyatt leading FaZe analyst. We're gonna get a sideline Plat Chat reporter, and every FaZe game, Wyatt's there to report on the match, and we're gonna have him be on the sidelines when events start happening. He has to be there in like an oversized suit, he has to be waiting with the microphone to talk about them, maybe do some interviews. I think your enthusiasm is it's not being hidden very well, Wyatt. We're gonna get you into the FaZe, the leading analyst.
I like it.
Let's talk about a team that actually did show some promise in Gen.G.
Yeah.
Because, this team just feels cursed to never make it deep in tournaments.
It is pretty rough, isn't it? They got a hard shout here. They went up against Immortals, and then they go up against 100 Thieves. Like, all right, those teams didn't make it to the finals. It's not like they lost to Sentinels, Envy, who ended up winning the whole thing. But Gen.G were, they got slapped on Icebox, which is unusual actually, because I thought Gen.G's attacking half would maybe redeem them in there. But the Gen.G themselves looked like they had promise, and that I think is my takeaway from this. Despite the fact that they went out and just weren't able to get a series together, whatever. But they still look like a promising team. This looks like the best iteration of Gen.G. Boosters really well integrated. They look like they have good teamwork and have fixed a lot of their issues that they've previously had in the past. This isn't the same one-dimensional Gen.G. I guess the problem for them is that even though they've got better, a lot of the other NA teams have as well. So now they're competing against a better... they're competing against more competitive peers than they ever have done before.
I think, Gen.G are in this place right now where they were in stasis for so long. They were just they were just frozen, the cryo chamber. And meanwhile, all the other NA teams were improving. They were just stuck. They were frozen, and now they've been released. The ice has melted. They can begin to improve again. They have a good staff. They have a great coach. And they do look like they actually have promise now. And I'm looking forward to seeing them again. And really the standout thing, despite them losing for me, was just Kusta is just really good. Kusta has
really good.
For being so new to the game, he has such an excellent sense for what is going on around him. He understands player positioning very well, enemy positioning. He understands the timings very well. He knows when to flank. He really has an excellent sense for the game for someone who is so new. And he looks to be a real standout for this team moving forward. And it looks like, they're just in a place where they can... I feel like the next time we see them, we are going to see them be better. So I'm excited for that. And they're at least in Challengers 3, so they've got another shot to qualify.
I'm excited for us to circle back to the Gen.G FaZe hellscape again, where we come back once again, and we're like, guys, maybe not so much FaZe. It seems like we've officially given up on the FaZe angle, but on Gen.G at least, I have a worry. I have a worry that even still, we're gonna come back because they do. Yeah, they look better. I had hope for them after the qualifier run, and Kusta does look really, really good and really intuitive on the Sentinel. But I don't know. Everyone else is looking so much better than this team. I feel like they didn't look extremely dynamic either. Like they weren't even necessarily playing the context style that has sort of like taken place like a lot more. That's become a lot more prevalent either. So I'm still worried about this team, and I'm still worried I'm going to come back to the Sisyphean hell. Let's push it forward up.
To be fair, the feeling I have about Gen.G is definitely the same feeling I had for Envy. I feel like it's almost mirrored in that aspect before this tournament. I feel like there's almost parallels of teams not reaching their potential, but the potential's there. And any tournament now, there's just going to be a moment where they reach it, and they're going to go further than people were anticipating.
I guess the problem is that Envy had already made it to a finals previously.
Yeah.
They'd just never been able to actually beat win a title. Like this was the first time that Envy have won a tournament, but they made the finals of Pop Flash.
Yeah.
And they looked...
Pop Flash was... How long ago was that?
It was a long time ago. That was in August, September.
Fucking hell, man. What you doing?
No, it was a long time ago. But what I'm saying is, Gen.G, it's genuine ancient history since they were in that position. Like actual
when the
ancient...
beta was released.
It was before Rome fell.
I mean, you were talking about them being in cryostasis. Yeah, the stone. There are stone tablets out there telling of Gen.G's success. They've been used to translate ancient languages. And that, I think, makes it a bit of a different situation.
But again, though, I do think there is something to the fact that they were just stuck for so long while the other teams were improving that it's like now finally the engine is started. They can actually start to improve now. So maybe I'm being hopeful, but I do feel like I think it's more likely that we continue to see Gen.G improve from this point than they either fall in the ranks or return to just being stuck in time. At least within the next couple months.
Avast stroking his chin like a doubter. I guess the Masters has 8 teams, so you only need to be theoretically top 8 to be able to make it.
It's pretty hard though.
That is hard, but I think Gen.G are probably a top 8 team right now. Like maybe they're 8 now.
Yeah, so we have LG, Gen.G, FaZe, 100 Thieves, and then who else is going to make it through? TSM, NRG.
Maybe NRG, so, they're the other team. Version 1, but I mean Gen.G are better than version 1.
No, I don't think version 1 will make it for sure.
And then I think the last
I don't think
team is
Andbox will
amateur
make it
team,
either.
honestly.
Yeah, I mean Dignitas actually dropped out.
Right.
They dropped out.
Oh, they dropped out?
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
My chat.
Why?
Where did they say that?
But yeah, maybe we should be covering that later on in the show, actually. But
Didn't know that.
I'm pretty sure it's because Sam's in hospital.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think Sam went in for surgery. I don't know what it's about.
well.
I haven't looked into the situation.
I think it's the surgery that he's been wanting to have for a while or some sort, I think. But yeah, he's been trying to get this for a while and he couldn't. So I don't know what it is.
I don't know the specifics
best
either.
wishes to him.
Yeah, wish him all the best as well.
I
but
feel bad for
I think
downplaying
the bracket got released and Dig were going to match up against TSM, and I think I don't know whether
Again?
again. And I think Dignitas were like, well, okay, I guess we bow out.
That is unfortunate
awful
for
seeding.
them.
Genuinely
I
awful
think
seeding.
they just keep playing TSM and doing fine.
Yeah.
That's but regardless, yeah. So I mean, Gen.G would have to. So wait. So I mean, I think it's very reasonable then that your top 4 could be LG, Gen.G, 100 Thieves, and TSM.
Maybe
I think
TSM.
that's a pretty reasonable end result. I think they've got a pretty good shot of making it.
That's fair. That's fair.
This fucking guy.
He's a doubter.
I'm just a Gen.G doubter because I feel like we've had these same conversations for a long time and they haven't changed that much. Like sure, they've added Kusta, they've added a new coach, but it's not like huge shifts for their culture necessarily. And their Sentinel play was never really the issue for this team. So like, yes, Kusta's really good. I don't know if Kusta is necessarily better than player 1 was, like I think
he is.
I think he is.
I think
now
he definitely.
at this point.
After watching this tournament, despite the losses, I think he definitely is, or at the very least, I think you have to think he probably will be. Not even
That's
probably.
fair.
He will be.
That's fair.
Let's talk about some of the roster moves in North America, which are still happening despite the fact that challenges is going on. Namely, Android, as you can see, to NRG, Rebo as well to Andbox. Android to NRG being the biggest one here, given the fact that he was a shining light on Andbox. It was the standout player. And it seemed like he was always a bit of a misfit on that roster, given that he felt like he was always the one who was clamoring and dragging this team to the prospects of tier 1. And now He's moved over to the NRG roster, and I am left wondering. Well, actually, before I even say what I think, do you guys think that this is a better fit for Android now? Is this where we're going to see his potential met?
Yes, but I don't know if it's going to be immediate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the prospect of the Android and EU duo is pretty strong. That is a
God, Hayes is old.
That
That is such a God. That is like okay, yeah.
Raise your dongers, am I right?
That is ancient. There are so many people watching Twitch now. They just don't know about raising dongers.
Yeah,
they haven't even heard about that.
Their dongers have been lowered for years. Very low dongers.
But that the prospects of that duo, that is going to be really nasty. But I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be immediate for this NRG roster, but there is more potential for it than whatever was going on at Andbox. I mean, unfortunately, I'd love to know what was going on behind the scenes at Andbox.
So here's my theory.
Okay, give it to me.
Have you got your tinfoil hat?
I'll
ready?
put it on.
We need some genuine tinfoil hats. The amount of conspiracy theories we spout is ridiculous.
How does this tie into David Dennis?
No,
I don't think
That's
David
what
has
I want to
anything
know.
do with
Where's
this.
the connection?
David
Where's
Dennis and the
connection?
frog
David
conspiracy
Dennis.
is a different matter. This is a different matter.
This doesn't connect. Okay.
No, but this.
Okay.
So NRG announced Andbox sounds. Okay, begin sentence, brain. Andbox announced the signing of Android just under 6 months ago.
Okay.
And so
I see where you're going with
my
this, right?
theory is that they probably signed Android to a 6-month contract. And obviously you sign him before you announce him. That's the way that it normally goes.
Yeah.
So he's probably, if I had to guess, he came to the end of his 6-month term with Andbox. He didn't really see a future for the team, maybe with the internal issues around their IGLing and the fact that they've had to bring in Rebo, etc. Maybe he doesn't believe in the future vision. Maybe he just feels like he wasn't personally getting used properly, which I agree with both aspects of that. I think Andbox don't look that great in the future, and I don't think they were using Android that well. And I think he was just looking for another home. And I think that with teams, most teams are not going to want to make roster moves right in the middle of a Challengers series, unless they're a team like NRG, who is in a bit of a slump and wants that extra firepower to be able to maybe push them over the line and try and qualify for Masters. That's my theory as to what's going on with Android there. And so I don't necessarily think that Android has had like the NRG was his perfect home and he's always wanted to go there. I would just theorize it's a good stepping stone move for him to get out of a very tactical system and into more of a... I mean, NRG are also quite a slow attempt at a tactical team.
Yeah, they
but
really are.
with NRG's duelist line now, they have the opportunity, I think, to play a little more explosively, or at least set Android up to play a little more loosely, I suppose, so that with him and Shanks, they can actually work picks and use that to inform what they want to do in the rest of the map, instead of being stuck in a very specific tactic. I don't think Android had the occasional map where he would drop like 30. He even dropped a map where he dropped like 39 or something. He nearly dropped a 40 bomb, I think. But generally speaking...
It was against NRG.
Was it?
Yeah.
But generally speaking, the Andbox style was not making good use of Android. And you can't... You're not going to be able to know how good Android actually is until he plays on a team that properly utilizes him. And so I think NRG could be a decent stepping stone for him in his career. He looks like a player with a lot of promise.
Yeah, definitely. This was a good move from NRG. I don't know if this roster right now is going to be the one. I don't find it highly likely. And by that, I mean enter into like the top, 5, 6, like being able to make semis or finals, win tournaments. But this, I think that being able to secure both Android and EU on one roster is something to build off of. So I'm at the very least more confident for the future of NRG down the line if they want to make more changes later. I am interested in seeing. They had said that Psalm would be moving over to the smoke role. I'm interested in seeing how that works. I think he was one of those guys who had that problem on Duelists where they can't help. They don't know when to stop. They just can't help themselves. They just have to take the next fight and the next fight. He just couldn't slow down. So maybe being on a role where he inherently has to slow down a little bit if they have him playing further in the back of the pack, maybe that'll help him, honestly. Because in terms of the other elements of his play, mechanics and everything, he was very strong. And he still would have good maps as a duelist. But
yeah,
I think that this could actually be a positive change for him as well.
We're assuming, by the way, that Infinite is going to be the guy that gets dropped.
I mean, that's all, but...
well, at the moment, it's just that he's out on an injury, and they haven't announced anything official, but that is what everybody's assuming, is that Android is coming in, Som's moving over to Smoke, Infinite's getting dropped, and they reshuffle the roster in that way.
Just needs more time to play Tarkov. Doesn't want to play anymore. So he's going to be gone. Let's be real here. He's gone.
It seems likely.
Pretty sure he's off the team.
And Andbox are fucked.
I mean, I
don't know what to think of Andbox.
I keep thinking about it because you were looking at an article about it on your stream, the Ewing effect. Just the possibility that Andbox losing their star player will just enable the rest of their pieces
every
to
time.
flourish.
It doesn't mean that every time you should drop your star player and try and like your. What is the key to success for Andbox? Access the Ewing effect. We must drop our best players and reach this mythical level.
The thing is, they just don't have any firepower now. I mean, they
have like Yay sometimes.
I mean, Yay is going to have to go. I mean, and listen, Yay has had some really excellent maps so far. He has had maps where it looks like he could be a real star player. He needs to access that. His third eye must open. He must play like that on every map. He must become Android and then surpass the Android in his mind. I don't know what the fuck that means. And if he can do that,
you got some crystals over there?
The rest of the team. And listen, I like Rebo. I think people are underrating Rebo. People are being really hard on Rebo, and I think that he's a pretty interesting player to watch. I think he has some nice ideas. He's pretty unique in his utility usage. So listen, I'm happy for Rebo that he has an opportunity to be signed and play for an org. And I actually think he's a decent player, and he could be a decent leader for this team. But they're just going to have the same problem. And without Android, the firepower problem is going to be even worse. Mata, who had been playing for Luminosity, he was a Sova for Luminosity before this Moose Dre iteration during First Strike. Evidently, he's going to be playing with them in Challengers 3. I don't know if he's still playing Sova. If he is, I don't know what comp they're going to run. I don't really know what they're going to attempt to do because there's definitely some role overlap, specifically when you're looking at Seb and Rebo. And then, I'm assuming Boy is going to stay on Smokes, and then Mata will be playing. I don't know. Maybe he will be the other duelist. I'm not sure what they're going to try. Maybe they just no duelist. Maybe they NIP it. I wouldn't be mad at that, honestly.
Yeah. They could play one duelist, theoretically. I think a lot of teams have been getting around with just a single duelist.
You get the one duelist, and then the rest of it, you play like NIP. But listen, it's gonna be tough for this team, and it's gonna be tough for the exact same reasons. But those reasons are going to be even more evident because Android is gone. They need to play DM all day long and hit all their shots, and they will be fine. But that is still the problem with the team.
All right, let's talk about.
Sorry, that was just fucking.
I just wanted to add in right at the end here is that when I said earlier that Dignitas had dropped out of Challengers 3, I can't find the source for that anymore, and I don't know where it was.
Your Twitch chat, probably.
My Twitch chat showed me it, but they also showed me a source, and I can't find it anymore, and I don't know whether it's even real. So
this sounds reliable.
From your
this
memory.
Sounds reliable.
Yeah, I mean, utterly unreliable news coming at you from Plat Chat Esquire.
Okay.
So it may be true. It may not be true. Might have just invented some horse shit and parroted what my Twitch chat told me. I can't find the source anymore.
Judge Wilkinson would like the jury to forget that this ever happened.
Yes, strike it from the record. Strike it from the record.
We're going to move on. rapidly. We're an hour and 20 in roughly, and we've only just finished North America.
That's fine.
That's pretty
I mean,
good.
there's
And
not
that's
much.
way better. That's way better than the other
This
time.
is actually
That's
better
so much
timing.
better.
Yeah, better timing than we usually do. Let's talk about
Your
the patch
hosting
notes.
skills are amazing.
Oh,
Yeah, we
Yeah.
got the patch notes to talk
patch
about.
notes.
This tournament was infuriating to watch.
Yeah, well, let's go over the patch notes. Open them up, and we can talk about it. Mainly being the biggest problem being the stinger was where I think
Yep.
a lot of our issues come from, and it's finally nerfed, obviously, in this patch that came out a while ago now, as we're doing this episode. But we didn't really talk about it. I think the patch notes got released as the episode was live.
Yeah, I think it was like
So
the
we
day
didn't get
after.
we knew it was being nerfed. We just didn't know really in what way. It seems like quite a reasonable nerf. They made changes to a bunch of different guns, the Frenzy, the Sting, and the Marshall. But watching it in the tournament, the biggest takeaway was, holy shit, the economy doesn't matter in most of the situations.
In the previous patch, you mean?
In the previous patch, yeah.
I mean, what was on for
in 2.0
Challengers
two
too.
games.
Yeah.
Because the Force by Stinger was just so powerful.
I mean,
you got so much bang for your buck for such a low amount of money.
Teams were also, it was like the last hurrah of the Stinger.
It really
so
was.
everyone tried to use it as much as humanly possible to abuse it before it disappeared. And it just became ridiculous. I swear this tournament had more Stinger usage than the previous ones that were on the same patch.
It definitely did. I mean,
seemed
Sentinels,
like it, right?
Sentinels ego, they were stuck in Stinger hell against Envy on Split.
Yeah, they were.
They just got Stingers every single round. There was
ridiculous.
definitely there had to be some kind of psychological effect in play.
felt-
It was just everybody wanted to buy the Stinger.
Yeah.
But yeah, as you were saying, this needed to happen because watching this tournament, you realize how having such a good gun at a low cost just devalues the meaning of a round in a game like this, and every round, because when the economy doesn't matter, the rounds don't have as much weight. There's not as much.
Yeah.
There's just not as much emphasis put on a crucial gun round when you can buy a Stinger and you will randomly get a 2K with it.
Feeds into it as well. Like if one team force buys, the other team sometimes will feel incentivized to force buy because the other team might have just won a round of Stinger armor and they're bonusing.
Yeah.
So it's like constantly trying
Yeah,
to.
it's like, they only have Stingers, we can win with
we
Stingers.
can win with Stinger's armor. So they're
Yeah.
just buying Stinger's armors.
And it's
I felt
just nonsense.
so sorry for Sean and DDK who were casting, I think, some of the worst matches of this that were taking place because they had come in, they were casting some theoretically on paper good matches, but they ended up being horribly one-sided.
Yeah.
They just come in and it's just there's no semblance of any sort of economical importance in the rounds. They're just casting essentially a Call of Duty SMG gunfest with teams running around. And I'm like, wow, I mean, yeah, you got to feel for them as well when some of their major strengths is the analytical knowledge that they bring.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Now,
I mean,
I really want to see Sean and DDK do CDL.
it has to be a COD.
Can you imagine them in that scene? That would be so funny.
I get a
but
sort of frustration mounting for Wyatt too, because like I would the tournament be ongoing and Wyatt would be like, I'm done with the Stinger. He's like, I'm done with it. You know, he'd just tweet that, and then like later on be like, get the Stinger out of here. Separate tweet.
Oh.
Get it out of here. Like each
While we're on
day
this topic-
the verbiage would get madder and more mad.
While we're on this topic, get rid of the fucking right click on the classic. Because I'm going to use this as my personal soapbox, but I jumped back into the game yesterday for a long time, for the first time in a while. That gun is still so ridiculous. You get it free. It's absurd. The amount of times I got RNG one-tapped by a classic from like 15 meters away was absurd. Or like, I remember there was one example of a Jett with their knives out. They dashed, they missed me with the right click on their knives, and they still had time to reset and just immediately right click as soon as their gun reset and one tapped me with the classic. Up close. I was like,
Actually, Kurt, if you can find that clip on Bren's stream, it's hilarious because the way that you frame it is that there was nothing you could do. It's crazy.
Somebody clipped it?
I got outplayed. Oh yeah, I saw the clip.
somebody clipped it.
I saw the clip.
We don't need to see it.
And
I take it back.
What
what happened
back.
was-
Right click's good.
you had a Raze rocket out. You fired it
Oh,
at a...
dude, no. But that, okay. If we rewatch... No. Okay.
We need the clip.
This, what do you expect me to do? Fucking air shot her? When she dashed into me? Like, did a janky-ass hitbox? You see her contort her body in midair? Like, what am I supposed to hit that shit?
No, but then afterwards, when you had your gun out, you just missed her completely.
Yeah, I
and
run a
then she
low sense.
right-clicked you.
What can I say? I run a low sense. I'm like whacking my arms. Oh, here it is.
Here it is.
Look at this shit. I'm
let's
like,
see the
I'm like,
evidence. Let's see the
I'm
evidence.
losing my mind, by the way, because we're playing 4 duelists on Icebox. I'm like, there's no fight. I'm like, okay, I missed the. Look at this. Look at this. Look at his face.
You know, honestly,
I
can feel the frustration for Bren
I like that
on this
you
one.
can read his lips. He said, "Get it out of the game."
Get it out of the fucking game. I've had enough. I've had enough of this gun.
Wouldn't it
It's
have been
plagued
sick if
me
you
for
hit
so
that midi,
fucking
though?
long. I'm like, okay,
If
I've
you
got
would hit
her.
this midi right here, that
What
would
is
be
she
so
doing?
cool. Look at this.
I use against the backdrop. She dashes into me. She misses her right click. Just fucking spams the right click and does 182 damage with the fucking classic right click. 182 damage. Get it out of the game. I'm sick of it. Stop. Just fucking copy CS for the love of God with the Glock. Just make it like a burst that goes like this. I don't care. I'm sick of it.
Can we run the clip one more time, Kurt? Because I suspect. I don't know whether I'm correct here, but I think you took some damage from the knives, and it wasn't 182 from the right
No,
click.
it was 182
Was it?
from the right click.
He was on full health at the end.
I think so. Okay, we'll run it back one more time.
I think you took a little bit of damage. Yeah, because
still 2 headshots on the enough to kill you. Like the
What's his
third
health
bullet
on?
doesn't even need to
All
hit.
right, so let's watch his health. Let's watch
he's
his
on
health.
150. Uh-oh.
There's the dash.
It missed.
He takes no damage there.
Oh, no,
he
it's
takes
all
no
the
damage.
click.
No,
It's
fair
all
enough.
It's all from the
click.
classic.
Fair enough. Get it out the game.
Bro, it
Get
is.
it out of the game.
Get it out the
Okay,
game.
but as much as I've gone on that tirade,
Get it out the
they've
game.
made some very good moves with the weapon balance in the game. With some of my major issues with this, with the game, but that is the final one. That is the last. It's like the fucking final Infinity
the final
Stone.
one. People are already making rumblings about the Judge and the Bucky.
I got
People
no
are
issues
already-
with the Judge of the Bucky. They
People
may
are
change. They may
pissed over
change
the Bucky. People
used
are
to be-
pissed over the
Oh,
Bucky.
yeah.
They
I
used
will
to be
say.
way worse. I used to be a Bucky one trick. I used to run that gun all the time sometimes because it was just absurd. You'd be running and gunning and right click would be perfectly accurate.
Yeah, yeah.
But they nerfed it, and I'm like, okay, fair enough. They're still both situational guns.
I actually think.
But I
that-
feel like that's the same for the classic right click. Well, the range is a bit too large.
I actually think that the Bucky could use a nerf to the price. I think they could increase the price slightly, make it like 100 or
Possibly,
or
yeah.
100 more, or 200 more.
Even still, like the classic right click, as soon as I've got that fucking the nerf, the Infinity Stone, just
You're going to be in Radiant.
fucking radiant. I can see it.
Yeah, the classics
see it.
keeping them down. But overall, well, the other thing in this patch, though, there was big news. It was like trending on Twitter with tens of thousands of tweets about it. Was Reyna getting nerfed? Because evidently,
Actually, I don't think Reyna got nerfed here. I'm gonna say something controversial. I don't think Reyna got nerfed. I think Reyna got buffed
For some places,
because
she got
I-
buffed?
She definitely got nerfed for some place.
I actually think, and I've heard this statement echoed by others, so you don't have to even take my word only. I've heard Caboose talk about this as well. You know,
Yeah,
I'm gonna-
Sliggy
you
had
can
the
find
same
his tweet.
opinion.
But I actually think Reyna got buffed because it made her utility more consistent now, because you can actually more consistently get orbs.
yeah,
I actually think she got buffed.
she definitely got a buff on pistols, on pistol rounds. Absolutely, there are so many situations where you tag someone with a pistol, but if you don't get or rather, a better way to frame it, if you get the overheal on pistol rounds, you are in
An
prime
unkillable
position
machine.
to pop off.
Yeah.
So being able to more consistently get to 150 on pistol rounds, big buff. I don't know if it's. I don't think it's strong enough of a change that it's a buff, but it's enough that reducing the amount of orbs you can get from 4 to 2 isn't a nerf. If that makes sense. I feel like it
Yeah,
kind of just evened itself out.
I think about it in this way: how many times do Reynas actually take fights with the rest of their team? And in the current usage of Reyna, it's very rare. Normally, Reyna's holding dumb angles that are one and done because they can dismiss out, taking aggressive pushes just on their own because they can dismiss away, and you don't take a teammate with you because, mate, that's throwing.
Yeah.
Because if they get stuck, they are dead because they don't have a dismiss. And stuff like, I don't know, like Shot Up when he pushes through a smoke and gets a pick and dismisses away. Those are the instances where you get the most value out of Reyna, and those are not the instances where you have a teammate ready to actually get the kill and then you get the orb off the assist. So to me, it's a side grade that has some moments where it's a buff, some moments where it's a nerf, but overall dilutes the essence of Reyna. The specific niche that Reyna had, as in you must get the kill in order to have value, but if you do get the kill, you have big value, is now just watered down.
You think so?
Yeah.
I do as well. I kind of, when I'm playing, I mean, as a resident Reyna one trick, I have
thanks
to
for
say,
that in my games.
Listen, that's why we get the wins. When I'm playing Reyna now, there is something about it that I don't know. It's not as fun. There's something about it that isn't as seeing the orb pop up because I'm on a pistol and I hit someone for 30 and then someone else headshot. It's like Yeah, it's I want to get 4 orbs in one round. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I don't know.
It feels like
I agree with the essence being gone a little bit, but
when game developers make decisions to balance the game, they often take in a variety of data, and sometimes they balance based off of pro play, sometimes it's off of ranked. This seems like a ranked play.
Yeah, it does.
Change because
Stop the Smurfs.
I reckon this is precisely what it is, right? Reyna seemed like she just kind of what's the best word to use here?
Terrorized.
I mean, she definitely terrorized the lower ranks, but she would just highlight the strengths of a Smurf, where Smurfs take advantage of uncoordinated lobbies, and her entire kit was built to enable you as an individual to pop off. Yeah. And if you place in those lobbies where you drastically outskill everybody, you can just take over a game with old Reyna. Like that was a thing that you could do. It seems like, I imagine what's happened is the average player probably plays Reyna, doesn't find that same impact because she was so much based on your own individual play. Yeah. And so her win rate probably didn't reflect that. With this trying to focus more on the team tag damage, you're kind of, not only you're knocking a lot of the impact out of the hands of the Smurfs, but you're also making it easier for her to play, basically. Yeah, for the average player. And
I suppose so.
You're taking away. I feel like when they introduced her concept, it was such a Valorant thing. It was like you know how Valorant as a game kind of markets itself as like the fucking cool game. I'm the fucking cool game. You know,
right.
Playing the music, playing the. It sounds like the cyberpunk theme, but it's not. Reyna was like almost the embodiment of Valorant as a game, where it's like, you are going to solo carry as Reyna. It's like an entirely solo carry agent. So it appeals to Wyatt. So it's locking it in our game.
I feel cool when I lock Reyna every game and provide no utility.
The 9 and 17 no utility Reyna.
But I'm
My
not
little brother was playing.
I'm not upset at this change, personally. I'm not upset because it seems like they've made a decision based off the data that they've got. It doesn't seem like they're doing it off of pro play, because it's almost like, well, they wouldn't if it was off.
I'm not upset because I didn't give a shit about the agent, honestly. Like, the agent was just a bit of a troll as it was. Yeah. Like, when you saw it getting value at pro play, you were like, well, there fucking goes again. Like, you know, it was just like, oh, well, yeah, you held an angle and dismissed away. Cool. So it wasn't like they haven't killed anything cool here. They had a design idea for Reyna and they have diluted it. Whether or not that's a good or a bad thing, I think, depends on your perspective of whether you enjoyed how Reyna was before or enjoy it how it is now. I don't think it's anything to get that bothered about. It's just.
But shouldn't you be excited that it's bringing her kit like almost more in line with team play style? I feel like now, not excited, Wyatt. You're just not excited, huh?
I don't want to play.
You're a hypocrisy. I'm tired of it, Wyatt. You've lambasted Reyna. Yep. All this time, and you're locking it in ranked, and now you're not excited about the changes, trying to bring it in line with a more team utility style. In fact, I'm hashtag cancel Wyatt. We're done with Wyatt. Cancel.
Would this be broken?
He's out of here.
Oh, here we go.
I was going to say, I did want to make an actual point. Before you say that, I want to make an actual point, which is going back to one of the things I said, though, like you saying that it doesn't, like, whatever, it doesn't really matter, that kind of thing. Obviously, people care about this a lot because I have never seen something from Valorant hit main trending Twitter with like 20 or 30,000 tweets or something about this Reyna change, that like Reyna's ruined. That was the narrative.
Is that what the narrative
people were
was?
like, oh, Reyna's ruined. Oh, my poor Reyna. I just want a one-trick Reyna. But now I can't. Like, people were very upset.
Yeah, that's weird. I thought maybe the public opinion would be, thank God people can't roll me as Reyna now in my game.
I'm
It's
sure
a
some
mixture,
people
right?
said that, but I saw overwhelming from what I saw was people were upset that she got
That's
changed.
I
interesting.
think
I
Reyna's
thought it
the
would be
Gen.G of Overwatch. When it's really strong,
Yeah.
people like it a lot, but some people hate it. But when she's nerfed, everyone says the game's dead. You know?
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think that's what it is. I think it's where we're at. I think
Exactly.
it's where we're at, maybe.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, Empress is the most underwhelming ultimate in the game
yeah.
in terms of impact.
Yeah. That's
And it
true.
said in that little extract from the developer or whoever's writing up the patch notes, it's like they still want to keep those 1v5 dream moments with the Empress coming up.
True. Yeah, that's
which
a
is
good
what they
point.
wanted, right? But I still feel like the ultimate, what they've done is inherently, I see this as a nerf personally. I'm curious what they're going to do here with this, but I always feel like the heal is a little bit clunky with it requiring line of sight. So what if when you use Empress, is this too much? It turns into a 50% lifesteal that doesn't need line of sight.
But you also
What?
you don't need line of sight for the heal when
What do
you're
you
an
mean? You
Empress.
get automatically healed.
Do you don't need line of sight?
You don't play very much Reyna, no.
No,
I thought
just get
you
healed.
always need
If you-
line of
No, if
sight.
you kill someone, you just get healed.
In Empress, you need line of sight normally when you use Devour, but when you're in the Empress form,
I didn't know that.
When you're in Empress form, you don't need orbs. Everyone drops an orb
Yeah.
automatically, and if you dismiss using it, you just get automatically healed anyway.
God, and it's
and
still wank, huh?
Yeah.
I was proposing a nerf.
no. The
it's-
Empress is now it actually has a place because if you
It has those moments.
because you can use more than 2 orbs in a
Yeah,
round.
yeah,
So if you
yeah,
pop
yeah.
the Empress in a
Yeah.
1v4, it's the only way you're going to win. Whereas if you don't pop the Empress, you are only having
still-
2 orbs.
In my opinion, the most underwhelming ult in the game.
Yeah, but
Which
at least
is-
now it has a niche.
It does have a niche, but haven't you just created a niche by nerfing her?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
You haven't actually increased the impact of the ult. You just
No.
created more situations. for
Yes.
it. Some people might take offense to that actually as well with me saying Empress is the least impactful ult in the game.
It's
but
definitely
Well, no,
true.
we've
I
definitely
think-
said this before. We've said Empress is the
yeah,
worst.
but
Oh,
I mean,
100%.
You guys want to play some ranked later? Now I just want to play Reyna more.
I'm actually every time I watch one match, I just want to play the game
yeah.
for all day.
See, that's the exciting part about Reyna. You never know what you're going to get. One game, I go 9-17. Ah, shit. Next game, 29 kills. Because Reyna, no consistent value.
I think this might be part of the reason as well that Shot Up has started transitioning to Breach as well.
Yeah,
to tie it back in the
genuinely.
competitive play a
Yeah.
little bit, is that even though they were playing on the old patch, the Immortals coaching staff might have seen this and thought, well, this doesn't really fit Shot Up's style where he likes to take a lot of 1v1s. He's not really playing with his team when he plays Reyna, especially on something like Ascent where he's just holding mid on his own. So why would we have him play Reyna anymore when he can only use
Yeah.
the orb twice? Let's get him on a different role. Let's start early and make sure we have a plan for once we actually get to Masters, which I think is part of the reason why
Let's,
he was playing different stuff.
Let's speed run through the rest of these patch notes real quick as well. if we
Was
bring
there
them up.
more?
Yeah, there was the Marshall change, the Frenzy change. So they buffed the Frenzy cost to $500 now because
Yep, great
didn't-
change.
They didn't want people buying the Frenzy armor. So I really like that change. They buffed the Marshall. So they decreased the price of it. They increased the movement speed that you can move while scoped in. They increased the scope as well of
Yeah,
it.
mate, they increased the scope so much. It looks. Were you ever a kid and you looked down like a toilet paper tube and you were like, oh, it's my telescope. But actually, all that happens is your FOV is just reduced to a tiny, tiny little amount. That's what I feel like when I look down the Marshall scope now. You get zoomed in so far. It's like your neck's just gone. It's ridiculous.
I haven't seen it yet.
You haven't tried using it?
It's
Well, I
pretty
do use the
ridiculous.
Marshall.
The zoom is aggressive.
It's pretty ridiculous.
I use the Marshall, but I no scope with it.
You could
mainly.
use it as an electron telescope to try and figure out what the atoms were that were composing the maps. It's crazy.
People have complained about that change for Marshall, though. If people are worried, it won't. I doubt it's going to matter for pro play, like at all. Honestly, like we'll see. But people complain that it's going to incentivize dumb people to buy Marshall, and they're worried that people are going to start buying Marshall because of the price decrease, and it's just going to make their life hell. Is what players. I've been seeing players complaining on Twitter about this. Is that they're worried about Marshall players moving forward.
Are they
just
worried about their
Marshall
teammates?
players just coming forward.
I don't think there's anything else though, right?
I don't know.
In this patch, no.
Let's have a
Sergeant Wyatt,
scroll.
the Stinger, the Frenzy, the
Well,
Marshall.
didn't they make changes to Yoru?
Yeah, but I
they
don't know
did some
what
quality
it
of life
was.
stuff. They just
same with Phoenix.
it shows on the
Right.
minimap where the audio cue for your gate crash is,
Very
which is
minor.
his teleport.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And now you can see your minimap when you ult, which helps you ping stuff.
Yeah, but it
and also
shows,
your
but it
allies
shows
can-
your enemies that you find in his
Yeah.
ult now are shown to your allies on the.
So you don't
minimap.
have to run around slamming the Z key every time.
Yeah.
All right. Take away the hosts and duties, Josh.
Huh?
This falafel wrap is running through me. So I gotta-
No, wait. We can't both. I have to.
Oh,
I have
yeah.
to.
By the way, you can leave. I'll tell the story.
You're gonna
No,
tell
I'm
the
just going to say,
story?
by the way. So last night
Yeah.
you ordered food and you
I'm
were like,
going.
"Oh, my food didn't show up." And
Yeah.
where's and then you
And I
ordered
said-
more food. It
I
didn't show up.
said to him, oh, well, they probably haven't stolen it. You should just check nearby houses to see. They've probably just misdelivered it. Bren was like, no, they've stolen it. They took a picture of just a black picture. They didn't take a picture. They stole it and ate it.
Well, I found out this morning at 8 a.m. that it wasn't stolen because our neighbor came over and brought Bren's food over.
That had been outside for...
About 12 hours.
Yeah, something like
About
that.
12 hours just outside. Some, what did he get? A falafel wrap? A little shawarma? I don't
Yep.
know. So it had just been sitting outside. The neighbor
Wait, did he
brought
just
it
eat
over at
that?
8 a.m.
That's what he ate.
So the neighbor brought it over at 8 a.m. He's like, I shouldn't eat the meat. That's not a good idea. So then he put the falafel wrap in the oven, applied a little heat, came back, ate it, and now Sideshow has to host the show.
And now he's shitting his guts out because he ate poisoned falafel that was sitting out. It was pecked by birds and insects for 12 hours.
Yeah.
Yep.
We've seen possums roaming around eating people's delivery food, so I think that's probably what happened.
No,
over here
you know,
as
that
well.
would actually be quite bad because possums are one of the carriers for like the Black Plague still. They still do carry that. Yeah. Possums and armadillos are still like carriers for like the plague, like the plague.
Really?
Like
the plague?
I'm pretty sure.
famous
I know
one?
armadillos. I'm pretty sure possums as well. Let me see. Let me
Okay.
Google.
What the hell is the next topic?
That is truly ludicrous. We're going on to Europe. We're going to recap
yes.
Europe, all right? So these are the 4 teams that end. Wait, we've got our Heretics in here twice instead of Alliance.
Well, they did a really good job.
Yeah, they did a great job.
Heretics did great.
It's NIP Alliance FPX, which I like that it's Fun plus Phoenix, and Heretics as well. Listen, our producer was just smoking some falafel early on. Our producer took the meat
rancid
portion of
falafel.
Brent's food before this when he was
All
making
right,
the
well,
lower third.
Do we want to talk about Heretics or Heretics? Or
Yeah.
NIP?
Yeah, let's
do we
start with
start
NIP. Let's start
Because
with NIP.
God damn, they're good. And they're one of my favorite teams to watch right now. I really like this new NIP roster. Both, they're very interesting on the individual level, but also the team level. And one of the coolest things about their team right now for me is actually Rhyme. It is so cool to see Rhyme become a star player and have such high impact on this roster, and also be put in position to be a star player in some wacky Vision Striker strats where he's running around on Sova getting flashed in. It's very funny, but he's playing really well, and I just never foresaw this future for him. If you were looking at previous NIP rosters, yet here he is playing so well. It's really cool to see, and also it is very funny on Ascent where they do the Vision Strikers flash and dash into tiles.
But they have no duelists.
But they have no duelists, so he's on Sova, just sprinting his little legs over the tiles. Flash is coming in, and they have someone with an op watching cat. It is so silly, but
so funny.
You love to see it.
So I want to give a bit of a rundown, though, for anybody who hasn't been following the European scene, because NIP is a name that's been always in Europe, but they've just been a rotating door of talent, and they've only now finally become a good team. I mean, they've been like hanging around at the like bottom tier 1 level
like
for
6th to
so
8th.
long, and yet now they are, arguably the best team in Europe, genuinely. And what's made the difference? Existence. If you're a fan of Counter-Strike, you will absolutely know this name. The Belgian IGL, who's worked with so many different French-speaking Francophone teams in the past and made them elite before. He's changed his name in Valorant. He now goes by Akukos. And although it's really edgy because the name means no mercy in Zoza.
I like it.
I love someone did an interview with him recently, and they said that the reason that he's changed it to that is because he feels like he doesn't want to carry over any of the baggage or any of the previous accolades from CS, that he wants to reinvent himself and prove himself again, so that it's not, oh, Existence was a great player in CS, surely he'll be great in Valorant, let's pick him up, let's heap praise upon him because he was good back then. He believes that his mentality is, it's a fresh start, I have to prove myself all over again, and I'm going to do it right from the beginning with a new identity. I fucking love that.
Yeah,
I think that's
very
really cool. So Akuko's, the IGL for this team, has turned them into a masterpiece. I mean, it's unbelievable. They're running no duelist compositions, and they occasionally run one duelist with Rhyme on the Raze when it comes to maps like Bind. And they are playing some of the best IGL style you will see across the world right now. Their attacking halves are beautiful. Their defense is all very well thought out. NIP were just a mess before Akukos joined the team, and now they're playing some gorgeous, gorgeous Valorant. And they are definitely a team to watch. They play a unique style that you won't see out of anybody else, and they have some absolute talent. So yeah, that's my setup piece for NIP. If we want to dig a bit deeper into the individuals.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, as you were saying, the way they play is a masterpiece. Specifically, their defensive halves are just gorgeous. They're so good. But on the individual level, they at the moment, still we haven't seen a ton of this roster, so to be revisited as time goes on. But the individuals just seem rock solid. Like, when has JD not shown up? When has Chihuahua not shown up?
Where is JD from as well? I think he plays with 70 ping all the time. Is he like Russian or Serbian or something?
JD, I'm pretty sure is Russian.
I think he is Russian.
Yep,
yeah.
Russian.
And he pounds.
He does pound. But those guys, they're just rock solid. They really are. And it's they are just the team looks like they just have it all right now.
Look at that KPR on Sage.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
He's playing against elite level teams right here. I mean, they've been playing in the Red Bull tournament where they ended up losing to G2, right?
Yeah.
And then they came back and they've beaten them twice recently within the Challengers series, once in Challengers 1, once in Challengers 2. So they've played against the best that Europe has to offer. And JD's putting up 0.99 KPR on Sage. Like,
it's ridiculous.
And they use him as the duelist.
And he, when you watch the games, you'd be hard pressed, I think, to say who like the real. I don't think they have like a star player. Him, Rhyme, Chihuahua, they all go off.
They do.
They really do. Like at times, Chihuahua looks like he's their best player to me. The team is really rock solid all around, and then Akukos just ties it all together. And their defensive halves really are just a fucking masterclass. They play the map control game so well.
Yeah, just
on
like
defense.
actually perfectly. If you want to learn how to play map control, just watch that team, because they use the information that they gather on defense perfectly, and as they lose one area of the map, they use their utility, because they have a shit ton of it, to retake different areas of the map. So if they, like here where they lose A main control, they'll be actively pushing other areas of the map. Like they've just drawn down Catwalk and they're pushing out B main, and as they're just so good at using information to be able to gather a good idea of where the attackers are going to be hitting.
It's like at any given time, if you have to attack into them, you have to be aware that suddenly a utility combo will just rain down on you. All of a sudden, slow orb, flash, shock darts, right into B main. There's just so much you have to be concerned about as an attacker when you're going up against them. But I mean,
you can see it in that clip right there where Rhyme's he's just like holding on grass and just annihilates people coming out from mid, from Cat.
Yeah, that was kind of crazy.
They take control of that map and he just like knows the rotation's going to happen. It's so good. It's so good.
To beat G2 now twice as well, it's just very impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, if we do want to talk about G2 a bit, they also, I thought that they were playing pretty well. They definitely were not playing poorly. I do think the glaring issue at the moment is still finding the role and agent for Zeke. I wasn't thoroughly impressed with the Sky. They got some value with it here and there, but it's tough. I don't think they've cracked it with him yet.
No, they haven't. He looks good when he plays the Breach for them on Split, which is weird because it puts Ardis on Sage, which is a very strange combination. Ardis has been playing Duelist for them. He played Raze on Split. He played Breach on Split. He looked really good. Now he's moved over to the Sage. And G2's Split defense looks really dynamic. Like they're pushing out areas with the Sage, walling off the extremities, and then having Zeke on the Breach play alongside Mixwell on Jett to do like flash and dash aggressive plays on defense into like down mid or into B main if the Sage is playing on the other side. So there's a lot of really interesting strategic stuff happening over in Europe. And they're diverging the exact opposite way to NA. As NA goes more and more towards, or not more and more actually, because this tournament was a bit of a relapse, but previously the Challengers 1 was a lot about the contact style and about minimizing utility usage to deny information to your opponents. Well, the whole of Europe is going the exact opposite way, where it's just mega heavy utility, very few duelists, and trying to clear out as much of the map as possible and use the information that you gather. But it's an active gathering process rather than a passive gathering process, which I think is a huge difference in style from the two regions.
I mean, the best two teams, I think the two teams that looked the best were the two most heavy in utility, which were NIP and FPX.
Sure.
I think that they look like the two best teams from what we had seen in these games, at least. Bren,
how are
Welcome back, Bren.
You know, I'm doing better.
Yeah.
Talking about NIP?
You're a couple pounds lighter.
You were.
Yep. Bro, I got parted like the Red Sea, I'm telling you.
That's excellent. Excellent news.
I'm
I was telling them,
Bren,
that the wildlife in Austin, they do carry, actually I learned it's not possums, it's only armadillos. But they do carry the bubonic plague. So hopefully they did not.
Armadillos do?
Armadillos do, yeah. So hopefully they were rustling through your 12-hour-old,
Intrigued.
falafel.
I think the word is can. I'm not sure all armadillos do carry
No, they're
the plague.
actually all born with the plague at birth. Yeah, at birth they all have it. Yeah.
yeah.
The point I wanted to make was that since the addition of existence.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Okay, well.
We can start talking about FPX though, Bren.
I would love to talk about FPX.
FPX look amazing, by the way. And Dimosek, I just have to say, we doubted like removing Meadow, but Dimosek, the way he takes map control so much more aggressively and actually takes duels the way that Meadow didn't, I think is huge for this team.
It is huge.
I think it's huge for this team.
As opposed to the first game we saw them with Dimosek, where we didn't really particularly see a big difference. In this one, you could clearly see he was playing in the way outlined by the coaches and staff as to why they wanted to make the move in the first place, which is they wanted a more aggressive, as you were saying. I mean, he takes space, he takes the duels, and also FPX on attack, on Haven specifically, again, just a masterclass in drawing out rotations from the defenders, taking map control, pressuring different areas of the map, and it just consistently allowed Dimosek to work his way up through B. He would sneak in, he would find a pick. It was just excellent play. That Haven map was so good from FPX. They're attacking half.
They probably played the best attacking half in Haven I've seen from any team, like ever.
It was so good.
Incredibly good, because it wasn't just them hitting shots or them having one good strat, but they ran like 6 different takes. And their default, as it starts out, puts pressure in so many different areas of the map. Like they started, and what I'm loving about FPX and NIP is that they have really started to work into the conditioning of their opponents. Like they have a very different plan for the beginning of the half compared to the end of the half. And that, I think, all comes from Kukos and Angel, where in this game particularly, where FPX were playing against Fnatic, they used their drone to take Garage for the first 4-5 rounds until Fnatic were forced to pay much more attention to Garage. And then they just started working A, working C, and lurking Dimosek into B, just conditioning them to pay attention to one area of the map and then ignoring it completely and working all the rest of the map, knowing that Fnatic were forced to respect their success from the earlier aspect of the half. It's so smart. It looks gorgeous and it works perfectly. FPX look fantastic when it comes to their attacking halves at the moment.
And on Split as well. I mean, we were talking about this when we were watching the game before, that they were opting to run the Sky. Shadow is playing Sky on Split. And typically I favor Breach on that map because it is just a map designed for Breach to pound. All of his utility is so effective. But Shadow on the Sky was getting insane value. That might have been that was the best Sky gameplay I've seen in Valorant so far.
Yeah.
There has not been a Sky better at setting up their teammates than Shadow in that game. It was really, really excellently played. I mean, FPX, what a rebound, honestly.
Yes.
Coming, I mean, they did lose Bind, but Bind against Fnatic is like,
yeah,
it's
Fnatic's
so
the best
hard.
team in Europe, arguably best team in the world on Bind right now. Their composition, no one's figured out a way to beat it, and no one's even trying to copy it right now. I mean, I say no one's figured out a way to beat it. They have lost it twice off stream to Polish teams, but I think both of those teams were running a Phoenix, which I think the increase in pace and the ability to just kind of flash through Viper walls does make a bit of a difference, and is part of the reason why none of the European teams have been able to beat them right now, is that they just play too slowly. They're not willing to get up in Fnatic's face as much. But anyway, Fnatic on Bind still absolutely elite. And I don't even feel that bad for Fnatic for losing this series. Because my takeaway coming out of this was not, Fnatic are so lackluster. It was, holy shit, FPX look good.
that seeing some of those highlights again, it's refreshing my memory even further. God, that Split map was so good from FPX. They comprehensively outplayed Fnatic in every respect of the game. Their read on them was spot on, and through that read, they were making perfect executions. The players knew the exact timings and windows to push up, like you saw Angel push into spawn there in that last clip, over the Sage wall that they had been consistently placing. I mean, it was just perfect. It was so good. But again, what a goddamn rebound coming back from, where they were in first strike, losing to Fnatic, obviously, who made the finals. They look incredible, and this is, in my mind, setting up for the match of like two teams that probably have, at least from what I've seen right now, I think the best utility usage in the game. If NIP and FPX play against each other, that is just going to be a wild, wild game.
I feel like Europe's finally going to be the one to unlock Sky as well. I thought it was going to be an A when like TSM started playing Sky on like on Bind. And I liked the concept a lot when they tried it, but I feel like it's just continued and is like gotten to the point where actually now Sky can be really good on maps like Split and what we saw here with Shadow. Like I feel like Europe will unlock this character. They're going to assemble the Millennium Puzzle, and it's going to be like Yugi when he gets that and he has it, and he's going to be able to figure out the heart of the cards, and that's going to be Sky for Europe, because I actually think that like there's so much utility possible through clearing these corners, and like the information, just so much information that Shadow got playing on this map, like a ridiculous amount of information. And I feel like we're just on the cusp of seeing Sky being meta. Yeah.
I think especially on Split, where so much of the defense in particular is based on information of where the attackers are. And you want to try and gather that info without peeking for it. Sky is damn good. She does seem worse than Breach when it comes to the attacking half, but FPX still had some great ideas of how they wanted to make that work, and they executed it wonderfully. I think the other thing to point out as well is, and something actually, talking about Avast watching Steel's streams where he molds at ranked players, something that Steel brings up a lot as well, is that both of these teams, FPX and NIP, great at using the clock, right? Like they don't just rush into areas. They condition their opponents to expect long, drawn-out rounds where they're pushing and prodding and gathering info, and then they make their decision, and they have a utility advantage and a player advantage because they've managed to manipulate rotators around. And then occasionally, NIP on their attack will throw in a burst hit as well, which really changes up the pace. But these two teams' manipulation of the clock is also something that's really evident when you watch them. It's not always slow like T1 used to be, and it's not only fast-paced aggression, but the fact that they mix it up and have very structured, methodical, slow rounds, I think is going to last them very well, and it's going to make them mega consistent. I'm extremely impressed.
We talked about lines.
No.
You want to talk about lines?
Yeah.
Go on then.
So, Alliance are the most unexpected of the four teams to be in Masters. For sure,
True.
right? Like, absolutely. before they played in this Challengers tournament, there weren't even any VODs available of them. So if you haven't watched Alliance personally at home, I do not blame you whatsoever, because there's only, I think, 2 matches that have ever had VODs. Am I right in saying that? I think it's just their game against Diffuse and their game against Wave. There's no VODs of anything else that exists.
Yeah.
And this is the team that was Banks in particular, though Mitch does work for the team, but Mitch was like casting one of their games, so he can't be working for them live as a coach. So he must have a very limited job on the team, I think. Anyway, this is Banks' brainchild, I think, in terms of him running the trials and finding players that he thought were high value. And he's managed to create a team genuinely that he deserves a huge amount of praise for here, because the team itself, he's managed to take talent, some of which is unknown, like Kadavra, who looks like a star player for this team, who really is blossoming. He's managed to take talent that was previously poorly utilized, like Lucker, who was playing a lot of Jet Orping and was pretty inconsistent and wasn't really able to find his style. Put him on the breach. Damn, boy's looking good. Like, actually, they've got a lot of good setups.
I thought you were going to say he was looking thick. That's what I thought you were saying.
Boy looking thick. But they've got this is a team with a lot of structure. They've put a lot of time and effort into really making sure that they have a bunch of set plays that they can run when they're on attack, when they're on defense. They don't look like a new team. They don't look like a team that's kind of winging it either. They look like a team that's really put in the time to practice and get good. And I think that is really working for them to a significant degree. They've got experienced players on the team, a mix of experience and more unknown players, a lot of skill, but they don't rely on their skill. They have a huge amount of structure as well. Even though they're the weakest of the 4 here, I think, that have made Masters, they deserve a lot of credit for getting to this point.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that against Wave, the existing tape of Wave has now worked against them, where Alliance were able to have a read on them? Because Wave, I think, definitely caught Fnatic off guard when they played with their mega fast style. But do you think that in this game, that the knowledge of how they play being out there worked against them?
Maybe a bit, because you certainly can't be caught off guard in the same way. Like, you know to expect that level of aggression. But I think it might also be a stylistic thing, that Fnatic don't work as well when you push them mega aggressively. Whereas Alliance, I think, they're not as tactical. They have a lot of good plans and tactics that they can run, but they're not as reliant on the tactics, I think, as Fnatic is. So I don't think they get upset in that kind of way by an aggressive team. But I'm not 100% sure. The problem with talking about both Wave and Alliance is that not much VOD data does exist of both of these teams. Wave, because they're a very new team, a young team that hasn't done much yet up until getting to this point. And Alliance, because even though they've been around for a little bit and they have experienced players, there's only genuinely 2 matches of them ever playing in Europe because they just have avoided being broadcast. So I think it's hard to draw concrete conclusions on these teams other than to say Alliance look pretty promising. Keep an eye on them.
It's kind of surprising.
I just want to point out how much better the Viper usage is, by the way, for both those teams. Just on those 20 seconds of clips that we saw, and then we harken back to the Immortals Viper on Icebox, and then then that truly brings on a depression, because like Viper utility is so good on Icebox, and like watching them split the map, and just like as soon as you split the map, know what information they don't have and like utilize it, and just seeing how no one in A, besides maybe XSET at times, I think, has any like really clear indication of how much information you get from Viper. It does hurt. It hurts a little bit.
I think it's just time as well, or maybe just North America in general just trends away from it. But yeah, my expectations for Alliance were minimal.
Same.
Completely minimal, because I mean, I think it's reasonable to not really expect much from a team that's just brought together. They don't have a star roster. Like, they genuinely don't.
Yeah. Like, who's the biggest name on this roster?
I'm not sure.
Like, Fearoth maybe,
Yeah.
or Lucker
I
or
mean, it
something.
would have had. I mean, if you're just going by biggest name going into it, yeah, it would have had to have been one of them.
But that's.
But I didn't realize they went through a trialing process.
I think
when
they went through a
building this
pretty
team.
extensive. Yeah, so I think this again has shown the success of Alliance has shown that actually having some structure in how you put together a roster is massively beneficial. Like we already knew that because we've been
Go
saying it
figure.
constantly about
Yeah.
like how Immortals build their rosters and stuff. But just putting some conscious thought into it and trying to build a roster instead of handing the keys over to a player and saying, "Who do you want to
Sign
play
your
with?
friends."
Sign your friends." Like it makes so much more sense. And also, I want to say huge credit to the players on Alliance as well for reinventing themselves in terms of the style that Lucker's playing, for example, and putting in the hard work because they really do look practiced. You can tell that this is a team that has put in the server time rather than just is winging it. There's no way that they're just relying on their skill. They know that they need the strategy and structure, and
Especially
they
if you're
have
playing
it.
in EU.
Hmm?
If you're playing in EU, especially.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what you think you can just do a G2 and try and like play mega reactive and play off your individual read on the game? It's not going to work if you have these kind of players. So I think they've found the perfect style as well. Very impressed with this team, actually. Overperformed my expectations massively.
Too bad that Liquid game would have been a good one to have streamed.
Definitely.
That's one team who.
Unfortunate. Well, we still have to talk about Heretics.
Oh, we haven't.
'Cause Heretics
okay.
beat,
I assumed that you
OG.
worked through it
No, we didn't.
logically.
No,
went
we
in-
haven't. But I mean, is there really much to say
I mean,
about this game?
not a lot. I mean, really, the only things to touch on are Rubino being in the roster. There was that. It wasn't against OG, but he replaced Lowell in the other game because Lowell, what was it? He was sick or something.
Lowell had a broken finger.
Oh, right, a broken finger. Yeah,
Yeah.
so he couldn't play. And Rubino's been stepping in, and he's been playing some maps.
He plays all the maps where they run a Sova
Yeah, instead of
instead
Nisao.
of Nisao.
But
And Nisao plays the Reyna maps now.
yeah, I mean, look, this win was there. I mean, watching this game, you were just one team was simply a tier higher than the other team. I don't really know if there's another way to put it. Some nice ideas from OG, but
On Ascent, there weren't many nice ideas from OG
No.
when it came to Bind.
I mean-
but their Ascent is their best map, and they look actually pretty promising there. The problem is Heretics are just actually still an elite tier team.
there was just a skill diff when you were just watching past OG having ideas for executes that they wanted to enact. When it came down to, like, if you looked at Bind, they got B for free every single round, and Heretics would just retake them with ease every single round. There was just a difference in skill.
The thing that was missing when I watched this series was OG's lack of understanding of the areas that are worth fighting over. Even in like post plan scenarios, like so many times they would be playing post plans, and they'd have 3 people playing from long on bind B,
Right.
for example,
Yeah.
like just completely giving up hookah control, like letting them just push in almost every single extremity and giving them complete
Yes,
control.
they did. They did.
And that's the thing that separates these teams like Heretics and OG, if we're on this topic, I suppose. And of course, I mean, I think I want to see OG be successful, but currently there is a discernible difference, at least from that kind of level of play that OG are playing at and the top level that Heretics are playing at, where they have that understanding of the importance of different areas to fight over. I think
OG actually did. They have actually secured some pretty decent wins in this run, and I think it's mostly to do with their strategy. Like their player skill isn't that high, and their on-the-fly reactive gameplay is pretty poor. But their strategy is really good. Like they come in, especially when they play Ascent, but even when they were playing Bind here, like their strategy of how to take the site is pretty good. Like they have a great understanding of that. They just then haven't thought about it afterwards, and they don't have the skill. Or maybe the skill is the wrong term, but like the
reps, the game sense.
Yeah, the reps and just the individual player game sense to be able to make the correct mid-round call. All of that stuff is missing from their play. They really need to work on the skill, the fundamentals, and the mid-rounding. But what they
They're
do
a pretty
have
good
is
team.
really good strategy.
Yeah.
And that is carrying them through these games. And Element actually does have the skill. Like Element is a tier 1 player. But this team has gone about it a weird way. Like most teams work on the reactive portion of their game before they work on the overarching strategy. This team's done it the opposite way around, but that doesn't mean there's any less success for them on the horizon. I think they could still be a good team in the future.
Yeah, they definitely can still be a pretty decent team.
Or they can keep the same structure, make a couple of roster changes, add more skill, and maybe be better as well.
Yeah.
Sure.
Could be another route for them.
One team that's missing list. Actually, there's two.
There's multiple.
There's multiple. There's a lot. There's more than two. But the one I'm thinking of is Liquid. Because they've been rumored to be making some trialing processes. They didn't make Challengers 2. They're trialing, is it Jamppi?
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like, again, these rumors surfacing, and this time there was actually some something concrete behind it. Essentially, that this experimentation that's going on seems like is it Eccles? I don't know who the other person is. They were experimenting with trialing and swapping out.
Yeah,
Eccles, I think.
Previously, they dropped Soulcast and Eccles to the bench for a couple of scrims to try out Yugi on the op. And this time, another report came out from Nell, I believe, who said they are practicing with Jamppi instead of Eccles. Now, practicing doesn't mean necessarily trialing for the long term, because as we've talked to Sliggy before in the past about this, he likes to just run random experiments with the team and try and figure out what's going on.
Also, it's like a bit of an incentive, This
one feels different.
This one is definitely different because this, like, no disrespect to Yugi, but like Yugi versus Jamppi, there's a difference. There's a big difference. This is the opportunity to get a player who has massive potential, has shown that they have a lot of skill, won't be able to realize that skill or the success that comes with it in CS due to they can't play at Valve-sanctioned events because there was cheating on an account that they owned on Steam when they were like practically out of the womb. I mean, it was a long time ago, was my impression. And that kind of that's a recipe for a star player in Valorant, honestly.
Yeah.
That is that is a storyline that would push a young, upcoming, great player to Valorant where he can realize his potential and win the Riot major equivalent, right? This is different, and this, I think, would be a move that could take Liquid over the top. I think
it's quite exciting, you know?
Yeah.
I think with Liquid as well, I mean, it's no bigger fan than me, apparently. Every time we're talking about Liquid. But this is a team that's almost been, they've been keeping essentially the same roster since Ardis left, right?
Yeah.
They haven't made any changes. This has been a long time that this roster has stayed together. And I've always wanted them to, stick it out. But at the end of the day, at what point do you need to make changes? I feel like they were so close to success in First Strike. When they in that first round lost to Heretics.
I mean, this says that they joined in August, but that was when they joined Team Liquid.
Yeah.
They formed this roster back in May, I think it was.
It was a long time ago,
Yeah,
they're Fish 1, 2, 3. It's been around forever.
Oh, it was June. So Ardis left in June, so Scream must have joined pretty much in June. Yeah.
Unknown date.
But yeah, it was sometime in June, so that is a long time. That's like, what, 8 months at this point?
Yep, yeah. It's been a long time.
Do you feel like the EU format has defeated this team a little bit, though? I feel like if the format was better, we would have seen more of this Liquid team, potentially.
I don't think so, because I think that, especially in Europe, these players are probably putting a lot more stock in their own personal experience in scrims, more so than they are the official results as well. Every time I see an interview piece written by, or not written, but where a player in Europe has spoken out about the formats, like, yeah, it's really unfortunate that the formats are kind of thick, but I mean, they generally, at least they say, they don't take it, they take it in their stride when they're moving forward and looking at the future goals. They don't look at these official results and like, we got to make some fucking changes. But it has been a long time since this team has made changes. And if they're moving in a direction and they think that this is where the benefit's going to be coming from, then fair enough. For me, I don't know. I'm uncertain of how this would exactly affect it, mainly because I haven't really seen Jamppi play Valorant. So I don't really know how this would fit.
Do any of us believe that Liquid should have made changes after First Strike? Because I think we were all in agreement they should not have done.
No, but I think this is the right time.
I think it's changed now.
I don't think the formats yes, the formats in EU have been bad. We all know that. But there have still been enough tournaments and enough moments for Liquid where we have seen the same thing happen time and time again, where they've either gone out too early or when they do start to make it deep, they're on the cusp and then they fall again.
Yes.
We've seen this happen so many times now. This is the right time to make a move, and I think this is the right move to make. I think that this is just the right move to make. This is the right move.
See. I'm along similar time, like wavelengths there, where I think we've seen enough of Team Liquid now to know that there is some kind of issue with them, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they're like never going to win, because they made a grand finals and they were in a 5-map series in the Red Bull home ground literally a month ago. But even in those circumstances, that's the best that they've done in literally since the team's formation, since Ardis left. And every other time when they've come up against a tier 1 team, it's felt like the players have crumbled. And I think there is a clear problem within that team, and specifically within the British players. I don't know which ones, but Link seems to underperform in these big games. Soulcast has had a couple of performances where he's underperformed in the big games, and especially on different roles. His agent pool seems to be a little limited. And I don't know whether it's fair to put it on them or whether it's fair to put it on the calling as well, because the IGLing seems to go to pot. Their attacking halves are really poor, which is where an IGL tends to have the most impact, is in those attacking rounds where you're dictating where the pieces should be moving. So I can understand this move of taking Eccles down. What I don't understand is who the hell is going to be calling for them in the future. If it's any of the players that are currently on the roster, like if Link steps up, or if Cryptix or Soulcast steps up and starts short calling for them, why haven't they already tried that? Why isn't that the thing that they have been trying recently to relieve Eccles?
Let me throw a point out there.
Because I don't think it's going to be Jamppi or Scream.
Let me throw a point out there. Sliggy, when we were talking to him on the show, his dreams may be realized, because there hasn't been anything official, but Riot employee, from what I saw, they had said on Twitter that they're excited to they're going to be adding coaching slots, and they're excited to have coaching be a more, I can't remember the exact framing. Maybe it's probably on Reddit, Kurt, but they're excited to basically have coaching be a bigger part of the game, is what they had said.
Yeah.
So,
but
maybe
that can mean a lot of things other than you're allowed to IGL in the match. Like that's
yes, but if they are
step.
spectating and can talk, I don't know. It's possible. But
but that you can't.
I'm saying, I know I'm saying, but that's a potential future.
There's no way we're playing like fantasy football here, where Sliggy's gonna call the shots for every player in the server.
That's been tried before, though.
It's been done in CS for a small time, though. It was only for like a year or something, wasn't it? Or maybe it was for longer than that.
I think it was for longer than that. I can't remember exactly, because a while ago when that really came.
It was a while back.
Okay.
Now, obviously, that's open-ended. So I'm just offering that as a potential future.
Sure.
If coaches can talk, they're obviously getting slots. If coaches can talk during games, that is a potential future. Sliggy said he would want to do it, so maybe. I'm just saying it's a maybe. But if not, I don't know who would be calling. I mean, presumably it would have to be one of the other 3 UK guys, right?
They're all really quiet. I mean, I don't know how they are when they're inside team comms, because Liquid don't tend to broadcast their matches the same way as some of the other European teams did like months ago. But from hearing snippets of them, they seem to be pretty reserved. And I don't know who would be the guy to step up and lead this team. There doesn't seem to be a natural leader.
I mean, it could be Jamppi coming in.
But he hasn't done it before in CS, has he?
I'm not sure.
No, unlikely. He's like another just like pretty young star fragger kind of guy.
And he's not...
So it's not a similar situation to when Existence comes into an IP and just revitalizes the team.
Not at all.
Exact opposite. They're getting a strong firepower star player.
And someone who can op, right, as well?
Yeah, he could.
So I think that portion of it all makes sense. But when you drop Eccles, you drop your IGL. And I'm not saying that that's a terrible thing, because I think the IGLing, you could definitely say, has been a weak point for Liquid. But someone's got to do it.
Didn't the article say that it wasn't necessarily Eccles?
They said that it was Eccles at the moment that he was playing.
I thought they listed another player.
In the past, they listed the player when it was talking about Yugi, but I don't think this article did.
But
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm not going to speculate.
But
Sure
yeah,
that
who
I
knows?
don't know. But no, it's interesting nevertheless. I think we're all in rough agreement that some change needs to be made for Liquid, given that they failed to make challenges too. Then again, we're not really approaching a lot of North American teams with the same scrutiny. Like TSM, for example.
But
Oh,
TSM, I do think a change is inevitable for TSM. It's just that TSM are not going to do it.
Right.
Like that's
I mean, that's
and the same thing for FaZe.
FaZe, yeah.
FaZe,
Yeah.
I would love
Yeah.
to blow the team
You're
up.
giving FaZe.
I mean,
Come
we're
on.
not going to talk about FaZe
I'm already getting
anymore.
riled up.
We're leaving it.
already
We're
getting-
leaving
I'm
it.
already getting riled
He has
up.
to back up.
We're not going
But
to
I mean,
talk about FaZe.
NA've had a lot of flux for a lot of the rosters. I mean, C9's been in constant flux for reasons some unbeknownst to us
Yeah.
at times.
NRG.
NRG, NRG,
reasonable.
Gen.G has made moves.
I think we only talk
like,
about it when we know that there's a prospect of some change actually happening. But those
Yeah.
teams, I mean, FaZe are just going to get stuck in a tar pit and lost to time. You know, it's like you're going to dig them out. And,
Move on.
yeah. Anyway,
Move on.
How do we always go back to FaZe?
let's talk
Enough.
about Brazil. A quick little recap of the region. I know you guys have been watching it. I haven't been watching it.
Yeah.
I've only been watching NA really.
Dude, Brazil is fucking unbelievable
I mean, yeah,
right now.
Brazil's
I'm waiting
and
for the
basically- Go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm waiting for the big tournament because still, with the experimentation of the formats, you've got these two individual groups
Yes.
every single time. But we've
Yeah.
got some teams now that have made Masters. I ain't surprised by these names whatsoever. These are the teams
These are the
that
top
I
I mean, yeah,
expected.
you got
These are
you
the top
actually
4
just
teams.
got the top 4 teams in, and yeah, to your point about the groups, Gamelanders and FURIA just wrecked the top,
Yep.
the
Yeah,
top
they
group.
did.
I mean, they just rolled their way
They
through.
fucking rolled them.
Because that top group was not particularly competitive. Group B, however, very competitive. B4, Vorax, Slick. I mean, these are all the teams in Group B are good.
Yes.
Slick being the wackiest of the bunch. But that, to some extent, I think kind of working against them, against Vorax or Vikings, they don't really have the same sound team play or
No.
strategy as a Vorax, who are so tenured, they've been playing for so long, or Vikings, just a new team that is assembled and a real powerhouse team.
But they're still good. Slick is still
Yeah,
good.
Slick are still good and a good test for both Vorax and Vikings
Yeah.
to prove that they are, I guess, worthy of like being in that top 4 category, because you would put Slick just outside of that in my mind right now. But yeah, you've ended up with the top 4 teams through. So
Yeah.
Yeah, to go through them a little bit in a bit more detail for people who are looking to catch up on the Brazilian scene. We'll start with Gamelanders. Gamelanders are the #1 team in Brazil. They won First Strike. They won every tournament that they've been almost every tournament they've been in, they've won. Every time they made a finals, they've won. Up until this week, actually, when they actually lost the finals to Squad 5, who are a team that I'm not particularly familiar with, but are kind of creeping into the top 5. And I can't tell you much about this game. I haven't watched the VOD yet, but it is interesting, at least, that Gamelanders lost their first ever finals just on the cusp of Masters. So this could be a bit of a shift in the dynamics of how
What
Brazil
patch
is
were they
operating.
playing in that match?
I
Do we
don't know.
Patch 2.02.
Oh, yeah, it says at
Okay,
the top
so
right.
it wasn't new patch. It was still old patch.
No,
then.
it's still
Yeah.
all patch.
Yeah.
Mm.
But Gamelanders are powered by this ridiculous duelist duo of MW0 and John. They've just been fantastic. You might have called them a First Strike. If you haven't, you should go and watch them. And if you didn't get to catch the game where Gamelanders played against FURIA, unfortunately it was only a BO1 where Gamelanders won. They had previously played a BO3 for qualification into Challengers, won, and FURIA won that one 2-1, but it wasn't on stream. But either way, the clash of these two teams is phenomenal. The pace that they play at, the utility that they use on the fly, the rifling skill from these teams is unbelievably good. They look like the new generation of Valorant. It's bonkers to watch them play. When I was watching it on stream, people were saying it looks like they're playing on fast forward.
yeah.
They just make decisions really, really quickly. And it's not like they're skipping steps. They're not failing to use utility and getting lazy and sloppy with it. It's still all the good utility is getting used. It's just happening at a much faster pace. And that I think
It's a
is
very fun region to watch.
yeah, it's an incredibly fun region to watch.
Yeah, they at this point, from watching, especially watching the top teams, they have it all. They're not lacking in any aspect of the game, and they play at a ridiculous pace, which again just sets up for interesting clashes if we look to the future where, if you want to fantasize about a Gamelanders versus an FPX game and how that would play out.
Yeah.
Just these mega clash, just an insane clash of styles where both teams have an excellent understanding of utility, but use it in a very, very different way. But to get the same results where the utility combos being used by FURIA as well and Gamelanders are very high level and very fast. It's just all in fluid motion. But yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. We kind of talked about this game, particularly this Icebox one, a little bit last week, so don't really need to dive into it again. But if you needed your first taste of Brazilian Valorant, this would be an excellent game to go and watch.
FURIA is a super team that's been made to try and compete with Gamelanders, and they look like the second best team in Brazil currently. They are ridiculously talented across the board. I think MW still looks like the best player in Brazil, but the overall talent on FURIA is probably the best of any team. They really are all stars. It's pretty fantastic to watch them play. They've also got an Argentinian player, so it's not all just from Brazil. Their Argentinian player might even be the best player on the team. Nozwa, the Sova, who's just insanely good.
I feel like all these matches, because I got to watch a couple of them, especially in Group B. They're all so ridiculous. Like when you watch them, just how the pace, and when you see these players just like pounding it out, like it's so wildly different than all the other regions, which we've already talked about before. But I really, really like Brazil right now. The more I've seen of them now, and sort of as the top 4 solidified, I think this region is going to be sick.
Yeah,
like
I'm just looking forward to the Masters event, honestly, for this region. That's it, because that's the one downside. I mean, we've kind of been spoiled a little bit in NA, where we get a tournament every 2 weeks, double elim tournament. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. But yeah, other regions, not the case. You kind of, we're just getting teased constantly until the Masters event, which I think is probably the intention of Riot as well. The way they set this up, they want the hype and the focus and the eyes to be on the Masters event. So, but yeah, just to build that anticipation on our end. Brazil, very good region. Do you want to go over the other teams as well, Josh?
Yeah, I want to give a quick shout out as well to Vorax. Have been a team that have been around for a long time. They've been kind of playing second fiddle to Gamelanders. They were previously known as Fusion Fraggers. They're also a very good team, but they've slipped to the 4th position in my head because FURIA and Vikings are new all-star teams that have come up. And to give a shout out to Vikings as well, they're a team that they have Sacy on Sova, who's
just ridiculous.
Probably the best Sova from Brazil, because Nozwa is from Argentina. But he is incredibly talented. The other players on Vikings are really skilled as well. And they have, again, a super fast, aggressive style where they like to be mega active in post plants. They like to push you on defense. It's just, that's the style of the region. They like to play with a lot of speed and a lot of aggression. And what a lot of the Brazilian teams will do, which is a really interesting stylistic thing, is when they're on the attacking side, instead of running a default to try and manipulate defender positions, they'll try and heavy hit one area of the site, one area of the map, to draw the defenders over there. And then if they get slowed down by utility, they will just pivot to a different area of the map. So they'll play a lot of 4-1 defaults where there's one guy just lurking into the other bomb site, 4 people putting heavy pressure on like B on bind, for example, and then they'll just run through the teleporter or run back through market and try and hit the A site really heavily. And they're trying to outpace their opponents rather than slowly work the map, which is a very different stylistic take on how to manipulate defenders.
Intriguing. You guys want to talk about another region?
Heck yeah.
Okay, I'm going to fly. Close your eyes, everybody. Picture yourself flying across the globe, because we're going to Korea.
Wow.
And it's fucking batshit. Let's take a look at the format. I think we may have already talked about the format. And in particular, we're going to be looking at Vision Strikers because they've lost their win streak that we were going on and on and on about. Kurt, can you show us the VLR page for the Korean Challengers 2, which I think was the exact same as Challengers 1.
I think this is the worst format.
Look at this. If we scroll down, they're running like a group section. So a bunch of these teams have actually made Masters off the back of it, but the way they made Masters was off round differential in a group stage round robin type format.
I mean, look at ZF Gaming. They won 0 games, they lost 0 games, they drew all their games, and they failed to go through on round. Well, no, they didn't fail to go through on round differential. It was TNL failed to go through on round
So
differential
sad.
by like
To ape Prince.
What is that?
5 rounds, from -2 to -7.
right. Yeah.
So I mean, if they got 6 rounds more in some of the games, they
yeah. I mean, if they got
would've
5 rounds,
qualified.
if they got 5 rounds more,
Would've
how
been a-
would they even have
Would have been
split
a
it?
draw. I don't know.
I don't know.
Coin flip, maybe.
Just awful.
What is happening in Korea?
I don't know. This, but
What's going on?
It's so
What's happening
crazy.
over there?
It is
Do you
just
remember
so
what they did at
experimental.
First Strike, where they ran the same map multiple times in
mystery
the BO series?
The mystery map.
Yeah.
Yeah, the mystery map.
The
where they just,
decider map was a mystery map from maps that
just
could already be
RNG.
picked.
It was RNG. It was like it could be any map in a series. It's like, it could be anything.
They seem to, in Korea, perhaps because they don't have a history of being like big into CS, they seem to not have like a good understanding of what formats work for this
Well,
game.
I
And I
will
don't know
say-
why that's the case, because Crossfire and Sudden Attack and stuff must use similar formats, surely.
Group stage formats, very popular in Korean esports, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
It's a very popular way of deciding things.
But
It also
GSL
depends.
style normally, isn't it?
I'm
Like
not-
the GSL style
Yeah.
group stage is like a Korean classic. They invented that.
What I will say is that if, for example, the TOs or if the Riot Korea side of things, I think one of the big disconnects we've had is the importance being placed on these closed qualifiers, like challenges 1, 2, and 3. And where we've set the standard in terms of like our viewing experience, because we're watching every single game in challenges 1, 2, and 3, like double elim format is great for us because we're watching a tournament play out. But for these other regions, I think the way Riot have always wanted to set the expectations is that they want the maximum amount of eyes and the maximum amount of hype to be in what would have been Challengers Finals is now the Masters event.
Yeah.
And
but
so as a result, they've been experimenting with the formats, trying to find something that is probably going to work for the future in every single region. And they just don't seem to be that concerned.
But that sounds reasonable until you frame it like this. There's going to be one grand finals in 3 months in Korea. One finals in 3 months.
Yeah.
In 2021. Like, that's shit.
It is
like
quite
the
shit.
NA version is so much better where you actually have a tournament for 50K. Like, I hate the fact that Europe only plays to qualify as well. One grand finals there in 3 months. At least they have the Red Bull home ground that was actually a good tournament alongside it too.
Yeah.
But these other regions, you can't just have such little climax. Like, you can't blue ball your audience for 3 months of the year and then give them
But isn't that
one
how Korean
nut at
esports
the end.
has done it for a while, with their group stages lasting a while and then they have the final at the very end? Hasn't that
Yeah.
always been the thing there?
In what?
In everything, hasn't they always had really long group stages and then a final way
typically,
off in
like-
the future?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I
Round
feel like
robin
they've done
group
it for
stages last a long
everything.
time until the one culmination of the final event. It's a different approach of how they're taking it. Like for us who consume esports content every single waking moment of our lives, the once in a 3 months is like, well, it's kind of shit. You know, you've only got that one thing to look forward to. But I think to a casual esports viewer, it might be more approachable to them knowing that once every 3 months, they don't have much to catch up on. They can just jump straight into a tournament. I think that seems quite accessible, honestly, to the average
Very
viewer,
true.
which is why they're experimenting with all these formats. I don't agree with it. I don't like it, but I can see the justification for it if I'm to play a devil's advocate to it.
Yeah. I don't
Sense
mind
to
that
me.
either. But it's just maybe we don't need to like have the most experimental, like, I'm fine with the group stages, but what's next? Are we gonna have each team's gonna rotate into the same map versus the same opponent next? Like, they'll all be on bind. And so we'll have Vision Strikers playing, then we're gonna rotate in, then we're gonna put in ZF Gaming, and then we're gonna put in World GameStar, and then we're just gonna like rotate Damn One. Then we're gonna just
run
keep
the
going,
gauntlet.
like each team in the same fucking one. Like, I don't see like what they're hoping to achieve with this group stage exactly though. Like, it's like a group stage, but worse.
It is. It is.
So do you want to get onto the actual teams? I mean, mainly Vision Strikers. So when we say they lose their win streak, they just drew matches, right?
Yeah, because it was BO2.
Yeah, because it was the BO2s.
How
they
shit
ended up
is that?
drawing matches.
How shit is that?
So they've lost their win streak.
But they still have an undefeated streak.
They do. They are
So
undefeated. I think that's nicer to
That's
put,
what you
right?
have to say now.
They're undefeated still.
Yeah, they're still undefeated.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the games that they ended up drawing, actually the games have been really interesting in Korea. Not necessarily because they've been super high level, but because I felt like Korea for quite a while was just trying to copy Vision Strikers. All of the teams that were doing well were just clones of Vision Strikers. In fact, the team that came second in First Strike was literally their sister team that had just learned from them and then got clapped in the finals because Vision Strikers knew exactly how they were going to play. But now these teams have actually developed their own styles. And one big aspect of it is that there's no Sentinels being played. And when I say no, that's obviously hyperbole, but there are very few Sentinels being played on these maps. And that includes Haven. I mean, you're witnessing it right here. It's incredibly unusual, but a lot of these Korean teams have started trending towards Jett, Raze, Sova Breach, and a Smoker, which is usually Omen, but is sometimes Brimstone, on these comps, and it applies to Bind, that applies to Ascent, and some teams run it on Haven too. And it's a really interesting take on the meta. It's not something that's happening anywhere else in the world. It's not something that Vision Strikers are doing either. It's just something that these like upcoming Korean teams have invented and pioneered, and it's getting them results.
Yeah, it's intriguing to see the way that the regions develop. I'm always left wondering as well, though, because if you look at the regions, just in terms of the viewership, the funding, I mean, Riot are clearly taking the initiative with this by giving, what is the correct term for it? Like almost like scholarship money for orgs in Korea, because they know that the region is struggling. They want the esport to succeed and they want it to be thriving in Korea, but the player base just hasn't latched onto it. The viewership isn't that fantastic for tournaments, and they've had to incentivize it in other ways. It's disappointing because there's such a storied history in this region that I think we all want to see it succeed. It would be fantastic.
I mean, fuck, Tasteless and Artosis were casting the Valorant games as well. I mean, that is as like old school esports from Korea as you get.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, those guys are just born and bred at this point in terms of like esports OGs.
Yeah. But the actual player base isn't as large.
Yeah, I think it's the lowest viewership out of any region. Maybe with the exception of some of the.
I think Japan was maybe the slightest bit lower.
Slide below it. Yeah. Maybe I'm just pulling that out of my ass.
The major regions.
But we would never expect Japan to be a major region in general because it's just not their thing.
Yeah.
Like it's not.
Yeah,
like, they just aren't that big in the global.
If you want to get into
stage.
that, it's like most people don't own a PC at home in Japan. PC gaming isn't that big, and it's very niche and sometimes looked down upon. And they've got gambling laws that prevent a lot of esports tournaments going around. Yeah. I think they may have changed that recently, which is why they're getting away with tournaments these days. But it's typically the region hasn't seen much success because of those reasons. Anyway,
I wanted to do a bit of a dive though, a little deeper into this stuff, because Vision Strikers had a game where they played against New Turn, where Vision Strikers actually tried something different. They had RB playing Raze instead of Jett.
Oh, it was some wacky stuff.
I'm not sure whether it was this game, Kirk. Could you scroll down?
It was
it was the previous one. Yeah.
It was a previous BO3.
And it was one that they nearly lost as a qualification match.
There it is.
And so this one, although the match itself is old, we haven't covered Korea in quite a while, and RB was upping on Raze, and they were trying to play basically like the contact style, but with an op.
It was very strange and such an odd kind of departure from what you expect from them. And it was finding value, but for the wrong reasons.
like old FaZe clan.
I mean, yeah, RB. I mean, it was just RB was Baby Bay. He was just walking. He was hard scoped, walking around split. Yeah. And the rest of his team were just set up to support him.
Yeah, if you look at this split game about round 7, I think you'll see what we're or maybe it was round 8, something like that.
But he would be.
You'll see what we mean.
Yeah, he would just be walking in on a ramp or a main area, just hard scoped in, looking for a pick. King would set up. He was playing Killjoy. He would set up the turret to watch up ramp, and he'd be watching that angle while RB would just slowly creep in with the op, and then sometimes they would do it on mid, and he would just be slowly walking up. And I was mauling because New Turn, they just couldn't help themselves. They just couldn't. They just, well, okay. Well, how do we find out if he's there? Okay, I don't want to peek. I don't want to check it. Shit, let me just check really quick. And then they would peek and just die. And he kept finding the pick because New Turn just couldn't help themselves. They had to keep peeking and trying to find out if he was there. It just happened over and over. It was very silly. But it seems like they've kind of gone away from it. I didn't watch the most recent matches.
They have gone away from it.
But it was very
It's like me the other day.
I mean, you were taking that aggressive angle. That angle is
it's
hard
ridiculous.
One to take. Is he doing it this round?
Here we go.
Yeah, it looks like
here
it.
We go. This is the turret that King kept setting up. He's got the op, and he's just gonna wait for New Turn.
And they're going to be drawn like moths to the flame.
They just couldn't help themselves.
Yeah, he was just just peeking these angles so slowly. In one of the
there it is.
yeah, it didn't even get caught on stream there, but he's essentially just walking in and asking King to hold his angle so that he doesn't get pushed from like a ramp. And the same happens in mid, where RB was literally just walking into B heaven, hard scope the entire time, asking someone to hold his ropes. And that was how they were clearing it out. And it was such a weird change for Vision Strikers. And it worked, but it wasn't good.
It worked for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, and then...
Oh my God, what in the Lord's name?
Yeah, so the Korean region still comes up with some really nice ideas, and I definitely think that the most recent idea that Newton and ZFG have been running, where they're not taking a duelist and they run this Breach Sova and Jett Raze, it's very aggressive. On defense, you have to be really aggro with it as well, and that applies to all of the maps. And it turns the game into a very different dynamic when you don't have that Sentinel. Because you're not playing with triple duelists. You're not trying to push out and take individual fights. You're still trying to flash peek to like clear areas on defense. So you're trying to, if you're playing Ascent, for example, you're trying to use the breach flashes aggressively to clear out B main or clear out A main when you're defending it. But you have to be so proactive on defense. And that, I think, is a really interesting new change for the region. Because even though they've liked a lot of aggression previously, it's been early round aggression. It's like, we'll run a set play at the beginning of the round. This is different. This is them actually starting to try and use compositions that require a lot of mid-rounding. So the Korean scene appears to be going through a bit of a growth period right now and really experimenting with a new composition that hasn't been seen anywhere else in the world. So very interesting stuff.
Yep, expect to see it in the NA region shortly.
Also, we've got to talk about the Raze player, bro.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There was the article on it.
Around.
I mean, this guy's movement, I didn't think this was possible. I genuinely did not think this was possible in the game of Valorant, but wait, I don't... In the Twitter clips that we have of them, that doesn't even show, like, the most extreme shit. Like, you can use the rocket momentum on top of a blast pack, and I didn't realize you could do this.
Yeah.
But you can just essentially, you can give up the prospect of using your rocket to get a kill, and instead use it to give you momentum.
Yeah.
Which no, he doesn't even do it here. He's just pushing in with the rocket.
I mean, it is just essentially it is a Raze double satcheling everywhere with a judge. He doesn't slow down. He doesn't have an off button. He just has a judge. He has a satchel, and he's
just a
having
human
a good time.
boom bot. They just send him walking forward until eventually he just finds someone to get the trade or maybe gets a couple.
Yeah. The way he plays is actually
My God,
kind of ludicrous, but also highlights how scary the judge can be if you are playing an agent that lets you get into close range without being punished. Like, you can't really punish Doenmo for...
jump in to Cat like that?
Yeah.
He's just sitting on Cat. They're not even repeating him from like tiles or anything.
Yeah.
He's just sitting there.
Yeah, and this is another example as well where he holds inside lamps, and they're so scared to actually challenge him with the utility. Like, they're hoping the utility will just make him run away anyway, but they don't want to go in there with their body because they know that one shot from the judge can just lead to you dying. So they don't want to peek him with the drone, even though that would be the smart thing to do. They're just so scared of him. Like, he has the psychological advantage over them here.
Get all this utility on him.
Yeah.
He's just sitting here in hookah, surviving the deluge. He's like a spider hanging onto his web when it's raining outside. He's just shaking and everything, but he's still there.
This is ridiculous.
It's wild.
I don't know.
Yeah, so this is just at the beginning of the round. He's playing in Garage. He double satchels down mid, just so fast.
With
just
the Leah.
Foon. Someone has to ban this guy. And then he's already behind them. They have no idea. The Sova ults. And he's already behind the C push.
I mean, this is
and
ridiculous.
this rocket, that's some beautiful splash damage.
Oh, yeah, look at
that's
that.
right in the
Perfect.
look at the ending, right in the frag. And then Paul.
But it's genuinely hard to counter because he's so annoying to play against, I feel. And it is quite one-dimensional, and his team doesn't support him particularly well. They have some setups where they support him pretty well, but they they kind of support him to get in.
Yeah.
They like have a thought plan on, hey, we need to hold this angle so that he can get in, or we need to throw this flash so that he can get in. But once he's in, they just leave him. They're just like, go do your shit. Go do your shit.
I like that he has Little Wayne as his profile picture.
If you can find the GG Recon article, I think it was, on this guy, they have different clips that show some bonkers shit.
It's him doing it in ranked. Yeah.
It's the stuff that he's doing with his rocket, which blew my mind when I saw it. He is literally like, it's like TF2, dude. Seriously, some of the shit that he does, because he like combines the momentum. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, trying to find this, but it is, here it is. Yeah, he's playing Overwatch.
I think it's this one.
Look at this.
Oh wait, no. Oh, it is that one.
Look at this.
Yeah, I've never.
My God.
Look at this.
What?
He does it in ascent mid as well.
Look at this. Watch this.
Oh yeah.
Look at the momentum. He like knows the physics of it. Look at this. That was impossible.
Shit. What do you even do? What do you even do when a Raze player falls from the sky?
He still has 50 armor there, but 9 HP.
Yeah.
I've never ever seen
the amount
that.
of full damage he took.
He takes 91 full damage.
It's absurd.
I mean, obviously this is like a ridiculous play that you're not going to be able to pull off in your games very often.
Makes me want to do it though.
Yeah, but
makes me want to practice.
But a lot of the stuff that he's actually doing against pro teams is really annoying to play against. Like genuinely annoying. It's not the most well-rounded gameplay in the world, but it's genuinely hard to deal with because the judge, it has such a fast firing rate that if you push behind a drone, you remember that like clip from Hookah? They drone in. If you're supposed to like come in and trade him straight after the drone, the judge can just go bang and one-shot the drone and then bang and one-shot you. You can actually just go bang, bang and one-shot the guy that comes in into Hookah. So there are specific areas in the map that it's incredibly hard to clear him out from. And I mean, this is one of those examples where his team is not supporting him at all. They've actually, they've just abandoned him in market.
He, on defense, has somehow worked his way up into market. There are 5 players aware of his existence. They want to flush him out.
They're just not
the rest of his
pushing him.
team, they're just holding side.
Yeah.
No, they've just left him.
Why is Newton so afraid of pushing him from short? I'm not sure. But they think that F4Q have pushed up short, and like the Perry here is worried that if he crosses short, he's going to get spammed by somebody else. And so, he's like, he's putting so much fear into these Korean teams that don't understand how to deal with him. But that doesn't mean that he's just getting away with murder. Like, he is, but there's also a nugget of, real skilled shit that he's pulling off.
Yeah.
That is really hard to
this is when he came in the back. Yeah. I mean, it's...
it's not going to win you Masters. But you need a player like this to exist for the ecosystem. You know what I mean?
Raze is going to be nerfed because of this guy. Like, I think that because he's shown what's capable, the movement of Raze. And when players catch up, they will have to bring Raze down as a result.
Yeah, this is actually an interesting point that Bren raises, is that a lot of the time early on in a game, people break a hero, break an agent early on, and then 2 years down the line, when everyone can do this, it needs to be nerfed.
Yep.
So I don't know what needs to be nerfed. Like maybe the judge is actually the thing that's empowering him to play like this. Because if you, the thing is, he's moving while shooting, and he can one-shot people with the judge. If this is a rifle that he's got, you don't give a fuck. Like you're going in there and clearing him out every day of the week. But because he has a judge, you can't.
God,
do
this
that
clip is
very easily.
ridiculous to me when he's doing when he's just happy feeding around like
it's
30
ridiculous.
pieces of utility and an
How
ult.
The fact that they use all the utility, but they still just want to commit B, so they have to go in there dry and just die. I mean, just go somewhere else at that point, man. You know he's there, just go somewhere else.
I actually think it is the judge, probably, Josh. I think that's probably a good like. If there was something that would nerf this playstyle, because you can't do this shit with a rifle. You can't even do this stuff with like new Stinger, probably. Like it's the judge.
It's interesting though.
It is interesting and really cool.
The if we move away from this topic. I mean, I'm putting in some server time.
I'm telling you, after the show, we're gonna play ranked.
I'm putting in
you
some
play
server
Raze,
time.
I'll play Reyna, and you Who would be the rock of the team?
I'm the raucous or the Zachary that has to pick up the pieces at the end once you fucks feed. Also, I think Bren's new YouTube video, I Tried to Be Duenmo, is going to pop off on YouTube. It's just him feeding relentlessly in ranked, going down back to gold.
No. Listen, I'll be going up. Someone came into my chat the other day and they were like, why'd you keep saying you're diamond in Valorant? And he was watching our games last night when I was just playing. God, I mean, I was playing an unorthodox playstyle. I'll tell you that for free.
Yeah.
The other topic we need to get onto is it's actually our final topic, other than the, of course, prestigious award, but the Valorant Gamechangers initiative, which is something that they've announced recently, where they are trying to empower marginalized genders and communities in Valorant by supporting them with tournaments and other aspects. And I think they're working closely with Galorants as well, which is another community focused for women in Valorant who are playing the game. Yeah, I mean, this is just really sick, I think, and also kind of necessary, I think, when you've typically, you know, the tactical shooter genre has been home to just kind of the pond scum of gaming, to put it lightly, in terms of just general opinions. I can say that because I played CS for a significant portion of my life, and I mean, you just communicate with some absolute degenerates when you play that game.
Yeah.
And some of those people have come over into Valorant, and there have been times where I've been playing, and generally speaking, it's been like quite a hostile environment in voice communications and voice comms.
Sure.
So these moves being made by Riot, obviously, they mentioned in this article as well at the bottom, this is on top of the changes they're making to the improvements to chat, voice communications, mitigation of griefing, and other things. But this is the next step in esports to encourage and foster that kind of growth with marginalized genders. Very, very cool. Big fan of this. Love to see it. Just all good things, honestly, coming from the Riot side of things.
Yeah, to talk about it more specifically, they're going to have an Ignition Series size tournament circuit that is specifically for, like they say, women and marginalized genders to take part in. So they have their own tournament circuit. And the idea, I assume that with it being Ignition Series size as well, the incentive is still there for people if they get really good. If you have like a Cloud9 White style team that is that level of skill, they will still be incentivized through the finances that are rewarded in the larger scene and the kind of clout and glory that you can play for in the larger scene as well, to move in and transition into the wider. Because the end goal here, in my opinion, should always be for the integration of it, right? But it's about the steps that you take in order to get there. And at the moment, you can't just say, well, I've seen so many of these comments in reply to the tweet as well that they made. The Valorant Twitter tweeted this out. Yeah. And there's, you know, most people are really supportive of it, but then there's still that like old esports, you know,
pond scum.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. Who are like, well, this is just a disadvantage for the men. They should be playing on an equal playing field. But the problem is the playing field isn't equal, and you've got to give them if you give women more opportunities to play in their own circuit, you're more likely to develop elite level talent that will be able to feed into the larger circuit. Yeah. It's just a good way of fixing it from a grassroots level.
Yeah. The playing field hasn't been equal in the past, so you have to support people to make the playing field even. Like, the notion that it is even is just wrong.
Just wrong.
So you have to retroactively help. All I'll say is I'm happy to be in the Valorant scene if this is where the values of the community and both the developers lie. That if this is something important to them, then I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. It's pretty impressive how aggressive they're marketing these aspects of their scene too, I feel. Because I feel like at times you might see these initiatives take place in other games and scenes, but I feel like Valorant is doing it in a very aggressive manner, which is nice because at sometimes I feel like companies and organizations are afraid to like talk about it because then they're going to get like, you know, I'm random first name, last name numbers after that Twitter user, like in their DMs and shit, like being annoying as fuck. But I think it's cool that they're willing to be so front facing with it And I just fucking banged the shit out of my microphone, so that's cool. and then, but I think that overall this is gonna be like it's building a healthy scene, building a healthier scene that should be better for everyone moving forward.
Yeah, I mean it definitely will.
Absolutely.
I mean, the more elite level women you get in the scene, the better it's going to be for everybody. It's just more elite
Breaking
level
down
players.
the barriers.
Yeah. I mean,
People are going to be watching esports events. They see somebody popping off, and then they find out, oh, she's a woman. And
Yeah.
like some young girl's watching that. And she's like, I can do this exact same thing.
Yeah.
Makes
That's
it
why I
way
think,
more accessible.
I mean, Cloud9 White, people are fucking loving that team because they've got
Exactly.
like sick personalities, sick players, and all right, they're not at the absolute top end of the scene, but it's cool to root for them to try and get as far as they can possibly get.
Yeah.
And this is just going to create, hopefully, more teams that are like that, or start to develop more players that can then become integrated into the wider scene if they choose to as well. If the scene is, and also that's the other part of it as well, is you don't want to isolate the two scenes so that the main scene never learns and grows. Like you don't want to keep the women in their own scene and then the men just continue to be misogynistic and they never have to deal with integrating women into their team and stuff like that. Like that is obviously still a barrier that could exist to these kind of situations, but hopefully that'll get broken down over time as more and more elite women start to get integrated because they're just natural pickups because they are really good players.
Yeah, no, all good news though coming on from the Riot side. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing the the fruits from it. Our final segment. I hope you're ready for this, Wyatt.
Yeah,
I know you would.
Gotta interrupt. Got some breaking news as of 40 minutes ago.
Oh.
Team Liquid part with Eccles.
We didn't miss it.
Oh my goodness!
This is because we're recording on Wednesday.
It literally is because we
Wednesday,
recorded on
Elite.
Wednesday. We would have.
missed this.
Huge. It's happened.
Wow.
They tried to bait us and they didn't manage it.
Well,
oh wow,
it's
okay.
happened.
So it's wow. Okay. So pretty
So
much
that
what we were
confirms.
discussing earlier.
yeah.
Yeah.
What are they doing about the IGL situation?
That is
I mean, I
still
guess
the
we're
big
still-
question.
But I do think this is the right move, though. I really do. I do worry about the IGLing a bit, but this is such an. It's going to be Jamppi, right? I mean,
Yes,
So
it's got to be
this-
Yampy, surely.
this is such a significant upgrade in terms of the firepower that this has to be the right move.
See, I'm concerned that this might not go as well as they hope, and they're going to have to make another move on top of it to add an IGL in. Like that's where I think the direction of Liquid is going to go, because I don't see how this move will naturally fix all of the issues. Because although it fixes firepower and adds a bit more of like I don't want to say experienced player because Yampi's super young, but he's not brand new to the big stage, and he's already showcased an ability to perform on it. Whereas some of the others, maybe they're struggling with like nerves or performance issues when they get to that position. But it does not solve, and in fact, in some senses, maybe impedes the IGLing and like calling structure of this team. But that does need to be solved, and I think that it probably is going to make another move necessary down the line too.
Yeah.
Because if the other guys can't pick that
Possibly.
aspect up, then it makes the most sense to continue with Jamppi, not to replace him with an IGL, but to replace one of the other guys with an IGL.
It's hard to find an IGL.
You're probably correct, and that honestly, that roster will probably be the best Team Liquid roster.
And that's what I'm thinking. I think this Team Liquid roster
It's a stepping stone.
is a stepping stone for me. Unless one of the other guys steps up. Like if Link steps up and he's a really good IGL, then fucking mad props, because like that is coming out of nowhere as far as I'm concerned. Like I didn't think that would be the case. So I will give him absolute credit, or whoever else manages to step up for the team.
Yeah.
Whoever is going to be their IGL. If it looks good this iteration, it's unexpected and you deserve a lot of credit. But to me, the next roster is going to be the one that probably does really well for Liquid.
Yeah.
But isn't
I
that
think some
assuming that they're actually
people-
going to find an IGL that's like good for them, though? I mean, like,
True.
they could theoretically be stuck in roster hell. I mean, that happens. Like, you can't get just stuck in roster hell trying to build
and
something
that's-
that
you
really
can.
performs.
I think one of the major criticisms of a move like this, when Masters is just around the corner, will be like, why are they making this change now? But it's the point we already came up with, which is that we already made. This team has existed for 8 months, I think.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
and there was a period of time where they should have made a change. Maybe it should have been a little bit before. They looked like they had potential, but yeah, there needed to be some sort of change. They feel like clearly this is the direction they want to go in.
Yeah. I also think, though, that with your question about is now the right time to do it, 4 spots have been locked in for Masters in Europe. And 2 of them have, well, not 2 of them actually, but 1 of them has been taken by a team that you wouldn't have expected to be there, Alliance.
Mm-hmm.
And so that leaves still Fnatic, G2.
Liquid. Well,
Yeah.
ignore Liquid for the moment,
But Fnatic, G2, Guild, and I mean, who else actually would be considered?
Wave.
Yeah.
Wave is still there, yeah.
Yeah, Wave.
OG is still on the fringe.
Yeah, Wave,
there.
Diffuse, OG. I feel like I'm missing another big team though, but maybe I'm not actually. Yeah. Yeah, actually, I suppose that is it. So yeah, no, I was going to say that Liquid have a hard time of making it to Masters, but I don't think they actually do. I think that even if they had kept this roster, they would still be considered favorites alongside teams like G2,
yeah.
come on, Brain, G2, Fnatic,
But
and
what I will say
Guild
as
to
well
make it through.
is that if they've made this move right when Masters is around the corner, the rumors were that they were already trialing this process.
Yes.
They must have had success with it for them to bite the bullet. They must have had success with
Or
it.
they can see potential. You don't necessarily need to see success,
Sure.
but you could see potential. Like you might be literally not doing as well as you were with Eccles, but you might think that there's way more growth.
Sure.
Like that could still be the case.
I think this roster is just going to roll their way into Masters.
As it is.
Yeah, as is. I think they're just going to steamroll this qualifier and get into Masters.
I hope I hope the seeding is good for the European portion of it. If this team ends up facing up against Fnatic
I have
for
a
a
feeling that's going to
qualifier,
happen.
I'm gonna fucking lose my
I have a
mind.
feeling they're
I'm
going to
lose my
Fnatic.
mind. I'm gonna lose my mind.
I
Yeah.
feel like they're going to run into Fnatic or some good team.
It's just
or Guild again.
There
Poor
should-
Guild.
Yeah, there should never be these kind of
Yeah.
issues. Like those teams should be on opposite sides of the qualifier from each other. But Liquid have done so poorly in the qualifiers that they won't actually have a high seed.
Yeah.
So
I think they're going to steamroll through.
yeah,
I can sense it. I can smell it.
that's
Wyatt.
pretty cool though.
Okay, now we're doing it.
Oh, we're doing it.
Okay.
It's time. Wyatt's Weekly Award.
What?
Is this a speaker? Is this like a speakmanship award?
Yeah,
a speaker's
that's the
award?
OG one.
Oh, it's the first one.
That's the original one.
Oh, who
Yeah,
gets
it's
it
the
this
original
week?
one.
then?
I mean, it's going to food. I mean,
Yeah, I thought you might have given it to. To Crashy.
I was on the verge of giving it to Crashies, and in my mind, when I was watching the tournament, like, man, Crashies getting it this week. But then at the finals, I mean,
Yeah,
it's going to food.
It's just an unreal performance.
Everyone knows why. He dropped whatever 50,000 kills and 19 deaths. He just steamrolled Sentinels. Had one of I said this earlier, but I think that might be the best finals performance of any player in Valorant so far.
if it isn't, then tell us who it was in the comments as well, because I would love to know who actually performed better than this in the finals.
and we need engagement.
Actually,
yeah,
We need our engagement
yo,
rates to be high.
shout! If you're from India, write a comment because we
True.
were looking up our engagements, and we've got a sizable Indian fan base.
yeah. What
that
was
are
it like?
watching it.
10% or something?
I don't know if
No,
it was
maybe
10%.
it
It's
was
like
less.
a couple thousand people though.
A couple of
well-
thousand people, yeah.
Anyhow, let me. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry,
We're gonna
sorry,
get to that. We're gonna get to that. But I mean, I don't know if there's a lot to say. That was the best grand finals performance from any player in Valorant so far, I believe. It was just, and aside from that, he played very well throughout the entirety of the tournament. It was his personal best tournament that he's had. He looked excellent on the Phoenix, and he led Envy to finally beating Sentinels 2 times, getting the first title for Envy. So it has to go to food. It
Yeah.
just simply has to.
Yeah. Congrats to him as well, because he looked like a player that was just struggling to find consistency throughout a tournament and throughout facing off against better and better opponents. Like he could always drop these kind of numbers against bad teams, but then against the good teams, he would get punished a little bit more. And this is just, I mean, this is the best team in North America, and he gave them a dick in. I mean,
Yeah,
he
the
absolutely
business.
owned
He
them.
made him look like a tier 3 team.
Yeah, they actually
He really did. I
they
mean,
got
he was just
dominated.
Imagine
It was
his
one of those-
trajectory too, going from T1 to Envy now. Like
Yeah.
I feel like it was a rough start for him potentially in the scene, and then now he's at a point where I feel like he's found a home that's like pretty good for him if he like keeps his footing moving forward. Like I think it's
what
pretty
I
good.
will
Go on.
I was going to say, what an interesting idea as well. The two best players on Envy for this tournament were the two players from T1 as well, Food and Crashies, the guys that came over
I mean,
and were, you know, I mean, Crashies was always good on T1.
Yeah.
But Food looked like he didn't have a place on that team, like he was out of sync with them completely. And Envy have crafted their style around him and looked superb.
That's what I was going to say, though. Crashies has been good for so long now that him playing really well, not a surprise. He is a top-tier player in the NA scene. This was really the first amazing tournament for Food, so he has to keep it up now. It's one thing to do this once, and it is amazing, and it is a remarkable feat, but please do it again, because this is the first time. So you can't just go off this one data point forever, because up until this point, he's been fine on Envy. He hasn't been amazing.
He hasn't been the best player for sure. Like that's 100% been Caboose and Crashies.
Please do it again. Keep doing it. If he can somehow keep this up, then he will have far exceeded my and I think a lot of people's expectations for him as a player.
It was magic watching.
You got to do it again though. He has to do it more.
It was like a mix of you know there's the classic trope of somebody who just always finds the lucky moments for a period of time, but it was like the perfect mix of he was playing really fucking well, hitting every single shot, and he would just find these ridiculous moments.
I mean,
out of
he
nowhere.
got 2 jumping kills while spraying the Fanta.
It was
And
like
he got a couple of
it was like he was
blind kills
blessed
as well.
by God to perform in the tournament, and he did. He went on to perform.
Yeah, it was incredible, actually.
Well deserved Wyatt's Weekly Award. I mean, what a fantastic episode. You said at the start of Avast, there's no way we reach 3 hours. I think we are just about reaching 3 hours.
Well,
so
what can you say?
5 seconds.
Close it.
No way. No, don't close it. We're going to keep it around the 3
Oh,
hours.
now it's it. Now it's it. We're 3 hours.
Yeah.
Anyway,
That's
leave
ruined
a
it.
comment if you're from India, or even if you're not from India. Leave a comment saying where you are right now. But
like
shout out to our Indian fan base.
That's going to bring the engagement.
That's
in.
good. There you go. Thousands of comments. I'm telling you, thousands of comments. All right. Thank you for watching. We'll see you on Mondays. Remember, for Back Chat, that's a new date for Back Chat Mondays. Coming to you soon.
Yes.
Yes. Goodbye.